That's right.
Wait, hold it. What the hell's going on here? And for God's sakes, what time is it?
Well, it's Podblast time. That's right. It's Podblast time. My voice is sort of strained today. Had a bit of an emotional ride. Someone I really care about, not to be depressing, passed away yesterday. Someone I was friends with who was battling an illness for quite some time. So I'm trying to pep up today, as you can see. I needed some music and some coffee and some audience members to cheer me up. And we have a very special guest today I want to talk about. He's been on the show before, but I had some audio issues. The audio was a little too low. But this man, I'm honored to have him, Mr. James Tim Walker. And he's an Emmy Award-Winning, multi-Emmy nominated animator in Hollywood, California for decades. And he's got some new information to share with us today. I'm super excited about it. It's very inspirational. I know a lot of you out there are struggling with emotional issues, physical issues, and or both. And this guy's going to lift you up. It's going to be a great show. And as you can see on camera, if you're listening in audio land, go to our YouTube channel, The Nostalgic with a C, Podblast. I'm Chance Bartels, host of the show. Or go to our Facebook group and join it, The Nostalgic Podblast, and you can see his book. James Tim Walker is also a published author. And I learned some things about him since the last time he was on the Podblast that's fascinating. He's going to have some breaking news, too, to talk about today. It's going to be all over the media. And he's going to actually give us an exclusive sneak peek at what he has going on. So he'll call in a little bit. How are you doing? Hope your weekend's going well. You watching the Olympics out there? I'm not trying to date the show. You might be listening in the wintertime, long after the summer games of 2021 are over. But, I'm watching a little bit of it. I bet a lot of you are watching it right now. That's a good thing about this show. It's on demand anytime you want to listen to it or watch it on YouTube. Again, YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast. So I'd love for you to leave some questions for Mr. Walker, and I will ask him those questions if it's something I haven't covered. But I have about, 30 questions to ask him. This is really good stuff. I mean, this guy, he pursued his dream, and he achieved a living pursuing his dream. Very inspirational. It's really cool, all the stuff he's done in his career. All the things you watched growing up on Saturday morning or on the big screen, he drew it. He even drew the sonar effect in the opening credits of a little show called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I'm going to hold that up for the camera, a DVD case of that show. Irwin Allen's show. And there was an effect. I don't want to fall over. That's happened before. There's an effect of a sonar, which is like the aquatic equivalent of radar, as you know. And it detects sounds under the ocean floor. And he drew that. And I think that's pretty cool. So he'll be on in a little bit. And, I want to play, let's see here, a little bit of the Voyage theme for you guys, just to refresh your memory of what this show was about. Let's see if I can find it. I thought I had it right. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. The show was on from 1964 to 1968 by Irwin Allen, and it was based on the movie from 1961 by Irwin Allen. And I had this queued right up. I don't know what the heck happened. Oh, well. But Mr. Walker is truly a great guy. Here we go.
Hard right rudder. Hard right rudder, aye.
See if the audio can get a little louder for y'all.
All hands.
I love the theme. I love incidental music. I'm a dork. Paul Sawtelle composed this music, not John Williams, who did Lost in Space, Time Tunnel, and Land of the Giants. So this is a season 4 episode. There'd be action, and then you'd see a sonar. I wish I could show it to you. Here we go. There's his art on the screen, if you could see it.
Voyage to the bottom of the sea. sea. Starring Richard Basehart. And David Hedison. Voyage to the bottom of the sea.
There you have it. Now here's some information about James Tim Walker. He goes by Tim Walker these days. Tim Walker, this is from the Animation Guild. He's a member of the Animation Guild Union. In the course of a career spanning 4 decades, Tim Walker has worked on more animated features and television shows than anybody in the history of the medium. And if he hadn't, then he's running a close second. Tim started in the cartoon business in the late 60s as an in-betweener and assistant, slowly working his way to full-fledged animator. Quote, "I was born in Hollywood, California, the cradle of animated film. To this day, I have a vivid memory of being 5 years old and watching cartoons on at my grandmother's house. That was it. I was hooked on animation." Now, Tim received a devastating diagnosis that we'll talk about later. I don't want to telegraph the punch. I want him, in his own words, to discuss that. And it could have destroyed him as a person, not just his career. But this is a story. It's inspirational. It's about overcoming odds, and it's just incredible. And he, like I said, he's won Emmy Awards. Let me see if I can find something for you here. Yeah. So there's actually a Scooby-Doo fan page of some animators that worked on Scooby-Doo. And here's one for Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders crew. And there's a nice little piece here on James Walker. It says, James Tim Walker is an American cartoonist, animation director, and producer who has worked at Hanna-Barbera Studios and Warner Brothers Animation. He worked on so many projects and movies that you've seen. I just can't believe he's on My Little Podblast. It's great. He worked on these TV series as an animator. The new Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show as the animation director, season 1, credited as Tim Walker. The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, animation director, season 1. Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue. And he did several episodes of that series. And here's some TV films he did. Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers. Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, animation director on both. And direct-to-video films, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. That sounds cool. I've never seen that. Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. This is great for Halloween, I would think. Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders. Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. And Scooby-Doo Franken-Creepy. I've never heard that. That's a cool name, Franken-Creepy. And he was the animation timing director. I'm going to ask him what that means because I have no idea. And he's just got an impressive list. Let me look at his IMDb for you. International Movie Database page. Because he worked on so many projects. And I'll tell you what he won an Emmy Award for later on in the show today. Appreciate your time. I know there's a lot going on this weekend. But let's see here. Here we go. And he was born September 17th, 1948 in Bowling Green, Missouri. My grandparents on both my mom and father's side were in Missouri as well, in the St. Louis area. But he was born James Timothy Walker, and he's known for his work on the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries from 1995, Samurai Jack in 2001, and Batman. See, I was going to ask him if he worked on any superhero projects. I knew the answer to that, but just in case this is the first time you've encountered an interview with Mr. Walker, I want him to talk about it. But he did work on Batman, Mask of the Phantasm in 1993. So he's a heck of a guy. And let's see here. He's retired now, I believe, but he worked, from 2015 to 2019 on the Loud House TV series. He was a sheet timer. Got to ask him what that is. I imagine it has something to do with cells, animated cells, but I don't want to assume anything. And he was on the new Looney Tunes TV short from 2015 to 2018. Whole bunch of episodes there. Justice League versus the Teen Titans, animation timing director. Batman, Bad Blood, Justice League, Gods and Monsters from 2015, Scooby-Doo, and Kiss. And Kiss, holy smokes, Gene Simmons and Kiss. See, my voice is going, Rock and Roll Mystery as the animation timing director from 2015. He worked on Looney Tunes, Rabbit's Run in 2015, Batman vs. Robin animation timing director in 2015. The Flintstones and WWE, Stone Age SmackDown. Wow, I mean, this is an impressive list. I could go on and on and on. That's just the recent stuff. Plastic Man, 2012 to 2013. Tom and Jerry, The Lost Dragon. Good Lord. Well, let's let him talk about it in his own words. Let me just play some intro music for Mr. James Tim Walker. I'm going to play some music to introduce our superstar, the man of the hour. Yeah! I am honored to have Mr. James Tim Walker back on the Podblast. I am stoked. This just makes my day, makes my month. Are you there, Mr. Walker?
Yeah, I'm here, but after that introduction, I'm going to lie down and put a cold towel on my forehead and take a nap.
I can't believe you're on the show. Since last time, I totally botched the audio. It was so low. I mean, you were audible, but man, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me make good on this.
That's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here for you. My pleasure. We'll do it all over again.
Super.
It's all about me, so why would I turn it down?
Super stuff. I have a lot of questions, and I teased it a little bit, but you've had a lot of recent developments that are outstanding that we're going to talk about today. And I was just reading, I don't know if you were listening, but I was reading some of your impressive credits. And you worked on superhero shows, a lot of Warner Brothers, because you were with Warner. It's just amazing.
7 years.
Yes. Let me try to get the audio a little bit louder.
Okay.
Hang on here.
There we go. I can hear you loud and clear. That's better.
Great.
Are you there?
Great.
Yeah. Now, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to start asking some questions then. Let's jump right into this, if we could. God, you've won an Emmy Award, like I mentioned. All right, so question number one. What's the origin of your dream to become a professional television and film animator, and what does a garbage can have to do with it?
Oh, brother. Okay, this is powerful stuff. So you better pay attention, kids. Well, I was about 4 years old at my grandparents' house one day with my brothers. They were babysitting us. And we were running around the house causing havoc and mayhem. And I ran by the TV set, and something caught my eye. I stopped in my tracks, and I looked over the TV set, and I looked at it, and my grandfather, I think, was sitting there. And I said, "What's that? What's that? How'd they do that? What is that?" And what I saw was a cartoon. It was the early 50s, and it was either Heckle and Jekyll or Popeye or Mighty Mouse, one of those packaged ones that they put together, the old cartoons shows. And I was hooked. Man. I'm a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. No, I'm going to be an animator, and that's it. I'm hooked. I'm doing that. I'm not doing anything else. And I'd like to say that I started drawing that day, but I would mention to say it was within the next month. I started drawing, and I'm 72 now, and I haven't stopped. I fell in love with it. And so what happened, as I'm growing up, going to grade school, some people moved into the house next door to my parents. We lived on a cul-de-sac, and there were about 35 baby boomers between the ages of 9 and 1 on that cul-de-sac. And so all the family socialized in a bit. And this guy came over. He was the head of publicity for ABC television for the entire West Coast. And he was socializing with my parents, and he came over one day, and he said to me, "Tim, you're going to love this new show. It's going to be on ABC in the fall, and it's done by the same guys that do Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear, and it's going to be called The Flintstones." Well, I knew about The Flintstones about a year before it came on, and I came unglued when I heard that. But what was even more important was he told me where Hanna-Barbera Studios was located. And it was within a mile and a half of my grade school where I used to go to, where I would ride my bike to grade school. So one Saturday, I got a map and I figured out where it was. I rode my bike up there, and I went to the trash can behind the studio and opened up the trash can, and there were cells and drawings and backgrounds of Huckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear, and all that. And for 10 years, I carted cells and drawings and backgrounds home from Hanna-Barbera. I was one of the original dumpster divers, starting in 1969. I think it was. And one Saturday, I was up there, and I was literally in the trash can. It was one of those big two top things where you lift the top up, and it was a big one. And I was inside the trash can, and I hear this, "Get out of that trash can, you knothead!" And and I looked up, and it was Mr. Barbera. And, of course, I didn't know who he was at the time, but I figured it was somebody there on Saturday. And so I got out of the trash can. I put the cells back in. I think I waited for him to leave, and then I took them back out again. And what happened, many years later, they threw a birthday party for Mr. Barbera at Warner Brothers Studios, because Hanna-Barbera was bought by Ted Turner, and then Ted Turner merged with Time Warner. And so Hanna-Barbera is now under the Time Warner corporate umbrella. And I don't even know what it is now. But anyhow, they had a party for Mr. B, and they filmed everybody who was still alive and still there who worked at the original studio. So I worked at the original studio, so they filmed me, and I said, "Hey, Mr. B, it's great to be here on your birthday, and I'm happy to celebrate your birthday. Happy 92 years, whatever it is. I bet you don't remember the first time we met." And I tell the story about dumpster diving and all that. It gets a big reaction from the people. They've heard it a million times, but they love hearing it, the workers. And I think Mr. B got a little tear in his eye, and maybe that was kind of cool that some kid that was in the trash can all those years ago made it in the business that he loved and that I loved, and made a name for himself and worked for him for many years. And they were my heroes. I mean, Hanna-Barbera, I love the old Disney stuff. I love the old Warner stuff, the MGM, all that stuff. But my heroes were Bill and Joe, because they did the stuff that I came home and watched at Yogi Bear and Huck Hound at 5 in the afternoon after school. And that was I grew up watching that stuff, and that's the stuff that's most nostalgic to me, and that's the stuff I love. So there you have it in a nutshell, my friend.
That's great. You knothead, get out of that trash can. I love that.
That's right.
So,
exactly right. You can quote that.
For those that don't know, what is an animation cell that you described finding in that trash can?
Well, it's almost like you don't see it much anymore because everything's computer. But for years, the cells were like, just imagine like plastic sheets of paper, like Saran wrap. Just imagine Saran wrap. It's clear, clear plastic. Well, a cell is a little bit thicker, and what they did was they linked the characters onto the cells so you could paint a painted background, and you could see the background through the cells. If you had to paint the background and do everything on a cell, you'd have to paint the background over and over and over and over and over. You'd never be able to do that. To explain, you couldn't do it. So a cell, people have probably seen them for years. They wind up in antique shops and old bookshops and things like that, especially out here in Hollywood and on the West Coast and in New York. Heritage auctions, a lot of them are. The Heritage auctions in Texas. But that's what a cell is. It's a clear plastic sheet, and everything has holes punched in them at the bottom, like notebook paper.
Yeah.
So everybody works on light boards and things that have those same pegs on the light boards that fit. So everything stays in register. Everything fits with everything else because it's all registered by those pegs and putting the paper and the cells on those pegs.
That's fascinating. Excellent. Now, how did you get to draw the opening credits of the sonar effect in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea? How'd that happen? That's fascinating to me.
I was 16 years old, and there was a guy that lived on the corner of the street I grew up on. His name was Fred Wolf, and he worked in animation in New York, and he came out here to Hollywood, and he worked at Hanna-Barbera for years. And he started his own little commercial studio with Jimmy Murakami. It's called Murakami Wolf Films. They did the first few years of the Ninja Turtles, when the Ninja Turtles had a show on television. He was involved in the first few years of that, which I worked on. Anyway, I was working as a gopher at his studio when I was 16 years old, just doing grunt work, and once in a while I'd do an in-between or something that they could use. Which is this, when you come into the industry, the first thing you learn how to do is in-betweens. That's the bottom line stuff. And then you go into background. If you want to paint backgrounds, you learn how to paint backgrounds. If you want to do character design, you learn how to do character design. You figure out what you want to do, but you start with in-betweens. Anyway, Murakami will subcontracted the opening title of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. So, and the opening scene is a white dot, and then the white line animates around. It's like a solar thing. And it animates around and says, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. And it animates around, starring Richard Basehart, David Edison, or whoever it is. Created by Erwin Allen. Well, I worked on that white line, and I had to make sure that I followed an animator's chart that showed me where to put them. And I had to make sure that the end of the white line was inside that white dot that's right in the middle of the field on the screen. Also, there'd be a little light flicker, and they couldn't have that, so I had to make sure every one of those things was registered. So I figured, you know what, this is the first thing I've ever worked on, and I got paid professionally for it. So I figured that's when I started. It was summer of 1964, when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And that's how I got started on it.
And you call that grunt work? That's awesome.
That wasn't grunt work, but it really was kind of tedious because there were a lot of lines going on it. But it's still kind of fun. And I told the story. I know I told you, and I told them the last time I was with you. I came home one night several months back from a party or something, and with my wife, and I was kind of half asleep. And it was about 2 in the morning or something. And Boys Bottom of the Sea came on, and I was watching the opening titles, and I was half asleep and thinking, how do I know this? How do I know? Oh, my goodness. It was 50 years ago that I worked on this thing. And in reality, I really had to put a cold towel on my forehead at that point. So,
That's pretty cool. And they redid the opening credits of Voyage for season 4, where you saw more of your animation, more of the sonar. That was the 67 to 68 final season of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea on ABC TV, where they showed that there would be an action teaser, and then about 3 minutes in, you'd see that dot, and you would see that sonar effect, and it would show the actors. It was different than the early black and white first season and the first.
I don't know. I wasn't at Burkham at that point, so I don't know if they had anything to do with the revised thing, or if some other studio did it or not. I wasn't there, but I was on the first one, that's for sure.
That's great. Now, whom do you admire as an artist or an animator yourself?
Whom do I? Oh God, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of guys that I've worked with over the years that are great, just great artists, great artists, and great guys. But I guess the guys I really love are the guys that did the great stuff back in the old days, and two or three of the guys that I really admire were number one, Fred Moore, who was a naive artist out of Lancaster, California, working in the Disney Studios at 18 years old in 1930, and did animation out of Three Little Pigs in 1933 that brought the house down, and Disney animation hasn't been the same. And what Fred Moore really established was he established a thing called squash and stretch. And when you put squash and stretch in your drawings, like if you take a ball and you throw a ball against a wall, you don't necessarily show the actual contact hit pose. You show a pose past that where the ball starts to squash, because it will squash it. It will retain the same volume, but if it squashes up, then it squashes in. If it squashes up and down, it squashes in the middle. So it stays the same volume, and then it springs back and it stretches. And so it squashes against the wall, and then when it springs off the wall, it stretches out and then settles into a normal pose as it goes back the other direction. So if you think of the Seven Dwarfs, he really established the Seven Dwarfs. I think he was 26 maybe, 25, 24 maybe, in 24 I think. And he established the Seven Dwarfs. Now, you talk about something, what's been better than the Seven Dwarfs? You know, they're all separate characters. But if you look at those jowls on the Seven Dwarfs, and they're always, when they're talking, they're squashing up, or, you know, when they say like a M mouth or a B mouth or a P mouth, which is a closed mouth, and then a wide open, A or O, it stretches down. When you apply squash and stretch into an animation drawing, it brings it to life. And he set the standard in the mid-30s, and he never looked back. I mean, he was the golden boy for many years. Another guy who was great was a guy named Norm Ferguson. And Norm Ferguson was just he was not a great draftsman like Fred Moore was, but he knew animation, and he knew animation timing. And he would draw very roughly, but they would always have people at the studio who were assistants, key assistants, who could draw like Michelangelo, who could draw anything. And those guys, in fact, a lot of those guys would get fed up at the studio because they would never be able to advance, because the animators would keep them in. They were more valuable as somebody that can make this. A lot of those guys would draw so rough, it's almost like stick figures or circles and lines. Those assistants could take those circles and lines and make them Captain Hook, make them Cruella de Vil. I mean, anything in the world. They were so great at drawing. So, so Norm Ferguson, he was the Pluto expert. He gave Pluto. He did a scene of Pluto getting stuck on some flypaper.
Wow.
And it's one of the earliest scenes where it actually looks like a character is thinking. Pluto would come to a pause, he'd stretch and stretch, trying to get this flat paper off his back. And then he would come to a pause, and he'd be puffing and puffing, and he'd get that quizzical look on his face, like, what's going on here? He actually thinks, this wasn't a character just going through the motions. This was a character motivated to go through these motions. This was a character that was thinking. And that's when Disney animation really arrived on the scene. When those guys could get the feeling these characters are different. When you stop and think of it, I mean, this is two-dimensional artwork that we're watching on a big screen that feels like real characters. I mean, it feels like real people talking and going through the motions.
Forgive my ignorance. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Norm Ferguson, is he best known for drawing Pluto, or is there another project?
He's best known for Pluto, but he also did The Old Witch and Snow White. He did Honest John and Gideon, the Cat and the Fox, and Pinocchio.
Oh.
He did some of the elements in the Hippos and Fantasia, Dance of the Hours. I mean, he's done a lot of great stuff. He's always had great assistants working for him. There was another guy who worked at Disney's named Ed Love. He was at Disney until the strike in 1940, and then he went to MGM. But when he was working on a lot of really great Mickey, Donald, and Pluto shorts that they did in the late 30s, where all of them would be in one cartoon, like Lonesome Ghosts and Clock Cleaners, and some of these people can look these up.
Yeah.
And Ed was very fast and very good. He always had great assistants. He always worked very well. But Disney told him that he was not going to work on Snow White. He wanted to work on Snow White, but he wasn't going to work on Snow White because Disney needed a good animator that could keep the shorts program going while they were doing the features. They couldn't let the shorts,
Well, we have a listener question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Barry King, and he's a host of a radio show in the Atlanta area called BK on the Air, and I think he's going to want to interview you as well, in the near future, talk about your book. But his question is, I love the new adventures of Flash Gordon from Filmation. Please ask what you thought of that and Filmation Studios.
I don't know if you want to hear this.
Don't hold back. Please don't.
I was never. I mean, I did 2 stints at Filmation. I did not work on Flash Gordon. However, I had a friend named Alan Wade, who was one of my mentors when I was early in the industry, and he taught me how to do in-betweens when I first got into business. And Alan Wade was a kid that grew up in Pomona, California. His parents and his sisters all worked at the Pomona Theater. Alan grew up loving the movies in the 30s and 40s, and he loved comic strips and drew like crazy. And he was a big fan of Alex Raymond's Flash Gordon. He had original comic strips of Flash Gordon and all that. Anyway, Alan was a key assistant on the Filmation Flash Gordon. And another friend of mine, Bob Klein, fabulous artist, was a head designer on Flash Gordon. I didn't work on Flash Gordon. I always liked the funny animal stuff, the cartoon stuff. I was not big on superhero stuff, although I got pigeonholed at Warner Brothers on the superhero stuff because Eric Adamski and Bruce Timm, the heads that did Batman the Animated Series, the very first one they did in I think it was 1989 or 90. I got on that, and I stayed with them for almost 27 years after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to get back to the Filmation was it was an okay place to work. I didn't care for their product too much because they had designers that I didn't like so much, and they had a way of doing things that just looked, it just had a sterile look to it to me. But it was work, and I was happy to get it. And there were a lot of great artists there. I had a good time with a lot of people there. But I guess you would say the Flash Gordon thing. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen one solid episode of it, ever.
Oh my goodness!
And I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I don't think I've ever seen one. So I can't really make a guess. But I know the Brady Bunch and all that stuff. I worked on all that stuff. And Tom and Jerry when they did it, Mighty Mouse when they did it. But I don't know. I don't have much of an answer for them. I'm sorry to say. I think it was probably okay for what it was. I mean, I know they they were experts at doing stock animation that they would use over and over and over again.
And over and over again, right?
Yep.
Have
So I
another.
hope that answers this question. I don't know if it does or not.
I think that's a very thorough answer. Thank you for that. Another question: which of your many works? And I'm surprised to hear that you didn't didn't enjoy working on the superheroes, because I'm a big Marvel Comics and somewhat of a DC Comics fan, and that's fine. That you didn't like that. That's interesting, because so many people like me would just love to work as an animator on those projects. That's interesting. But which of your works of art are you most proud of in your impressive list of credits?
Oh, my. Okay. Well, contrary to what I just said, I loved Batman Animated Adventure, the first one, because it was so great. When I told you about my friend took me over to the studio to show me the artwork and get me to commit to it. I saw the presentation work that Bruce Timm and Eric Adamski did on it, and they took stuff from the Max Fleischer Supermans. They did Art Deco. They did all kinds of stuff, and it was really a gorgeous show. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed working on that show. I usually don't like that stuff. I'm more of a funny animal stuff. I grew up with Mighty Mouse and Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny and Mickey and Donald and Pluto and that stuff, and I love that stuff. And the Hanna-Barbera stuff. I was not big on superheroes. I was not a big DC comic book or Marvel comic book guy. I was a Dell comic book guy. I loved the Dell comic books, the Tom and Jerry, the Disney, the new, especially the New Funnies. Big fan of the New Funnies. And there was a guy, Ed Gormley, who drew the New Funnies in the 40s and 50s. It was a Dell comic book artist, and he was a great artist. And his drawings reek of animation, and I can't find out anything about him. But I wasn't a big fan of the superheroes. But anyway, to get back to your question, I love Batman Animated Adventure. I love Samurai Jack. I loved Tailspin and DuckTales and Darkwing Duck in Disney. I've always loved working on Fred. Even though the shows weren't very good, I always worked on second and third generations of the Flintstones. I didn't work on the first generation. I was a kid then. But I've always loved working on Fred.
My dad. Well, I was gonna say my dad loved Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Oh yeah, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. That's the nephews, Donald's nephews, and they were in DuckTales. I did those guys in the original DuckTales, and then the DuckTale movie, The Treasure of the Lost Lamp. I worked on that. Let's see what else. I love Mr. Magoo. He's my favorite character of all time. The 1950s Magoo.
Jim Backus from Mr. Howell, best known to the layman as the actor who played Thurston Howell III in Gilligan's Island. Of course, he was in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean as the father, but he was Mr. Magoo. Hey, by the way, this is not a complaint. I'm just curious. Do you have a parrot in the background? Or are you in a rocking chair? I hear an interesting sound in the background.
It's my pet parrot. No. It's a rocking chair.
It's all no. It's cool. I just was curious because it sounded like a bird. I was just wondering.
No, it's not a bird. Mr. Magoo is my favorite character. And I worked on a show at the Penny Cleaning called What's New Magoo. It was just kind of a pot boiler that they, UPA sold it as a series, and they came to the Patty Freeling and they subcontracted it to the Patty Freeling to do it. I worked on that. But I've always loved Magoo, and I never had a chance to work on any classical ones other than my woman. I tried to sell them some ideas on Magoo, and I could never get past first place with them. They weren't interested in doing any production anymore. So, but anyway, but those are some of the shows that I liked. I did 4 years with Ralph Bakshi early on.
Oh my Lord, we're gonna talk about him. Yeah, he's one of the greatest.
Yeah, I loved working for him because he did full animation as full as you could get it to be without being Disney. And he tried really hard to make it in this town. He did several films, but unless you have, back in the early 70s, unless you have Walt Disney in front of your titles, it's just tough to sell an animated feature and make any money. It's really a tough thing to do. But he tried, and there was a lot of old timers working there that I worked with that I really had a blast with. And Ralph used to love to play ping pong. I'm sure I told you this story. that he had a ping pong table, and him and Irv Spence. Irv Spence was a great animator from MGM that worked on the classic Tom and Jerry's from the early 40s to the mid 50s, and he loved to play ping pong.
I love Tex Avery. You know, like I love the Droopy cartoons, MGM.
Oh yeah.
Which
Avery was a genius. I knew Tex.
Of course, now Amazon has absorbed MGM. They're going to own those cartoons. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I don't know if Amazon bought MGM. MGM doesn't own those cartoons anymore. Time Warner owns those cartoons because Ted Turner, when he bought MGM.
That's right. Where's my head
at? He bought
at?
the film library. That's what he wanted, the film library. He got the film library and he sold the studio, the physical studio, and he sold everything in it to pay off the debt. And he got the film library and he got all the cartoons and all the short live action films and everything. So Time Warner has all that stuff.
I gotcha.
I think they just released a couple of Tex Avery DVDs, so the Averys are slowly coming out. Anyway, the ping pong story, I'll just touch on it briefly.
Okay.
I played ping pong, and I beat Ralph, and I beat her constantly. And they would always want me to play, and sometimes I played Ralph all day long. I got so sick of it, I finally let him beat me, because I just couldn't stand it anymore. I was just burned out on it. But what I couldn't understand was, they couldn't even see what was going on. I had no offense at all, none. But I had a defense. That I could hit the ball and make you hit it into the net. I could spin the ball and make you hit it off the table. I could do all this stuff. And they never realized it until I finally told them. And then I let Ralph beat me, and I said, that's it, I don't need to do it anymore. I don't even do no ping pong. And then I ran into Ralph years later at a comic at San Diego Comic Con. And I had just done a book, and he had done a book, and we traded books. And, of course, we talked about ping pong. And, of course, Ralph sees it the other way. Ralph sees it that he was the one who won all the games.
Oh, sure.
And I just thought, you know what, it's okay. I love Ralph. I love working for him. He gave me employment for a long time. So I just let him have it like that. I let him do it. I didn't say anything. But it was fun to see him. I really enjoyed him. And I loved working there. It was a lot of fun.
Well, Mr. Walker, I'm looking at your impressive Emmy Award credits, nominations, and your win on the actual Emmy.com website. And let's see, you were nominated, James Tim Walker, for being the animation timing supervisor in Justice League, The New Frontier by Warner Brothers. That's pretty cool, in 2008. And then
Did it win? Did it win, do you know, or not?
I'll get to that. You're a nominee, and then in 2005, you're a nominee for Outstanding Animated Program for programming less than 1 hour, and you did sheet timing. I want to ask you what that is, what that process is, and that was for Samurai Jack for the Cartoon Network. What is sheet timing? What does that mean?
Sheet timing is you fill out exposure sheets. Exposure sheets are like ledger sheets, like notebook sheets of paper, and you fill out exposure sheets for every scene in a cartoon because you have to time the scenes out. If you have a scene of dialogue where a character is talking, you know how long the scene is going to be usually because that piece of dialogue is going to be a certain amount of feet long, recorded. Now, when you have scenes that there is no dialogue in, and you have to put footage in to make up, however long the scene is going to be, it's called slugging a board, and you slug in footage for that scene. Now, let's say you're going to have a fight scene between Batman and the Joker.
Wow.
You establish the confrontation. Joker is going to get somebody. Batman arrives on the scene. Batman walks up to him, and they confront each other. Well, you spend some time there just getting the confrontation set up. And then once somebody throws the first punch, then you go like a bat out of hell, quick cuts and stuff, because it's a fight. You can go really fast. Because you've already established that these guys are confronting each other. Somebody's going to throw a punch, and then we're going to go from there. And then we usually show the wrap up of the Joker knocked out. He flies off stage, whatever. He hits a wall, falls down, and he's laying in a pool of Joker blood or whatever. and then you show that for a while because that's what's happened because of the fight. So you have to slug in. Sheet timing is you time out all this action to the frame. Everything that moves has to be timed out on that sheet, exposure sheet. Because if it's moving, you've got to tell the animator that here's where this thing moves. And if he doesn't put it in, then he's got to go back and redo it. And someone's got to redo it. And that costs money. So if you don't put it on the exposure sheet, you pay for it. If it's put on the exposure sheet and they don't do it, especially since a lot of this stuff was done overseas, if it's on the exposure sheet and they don't do the action right, they have to pay to redo it. So it's technical stuff, but it's creative. It's tedious, but it's very creative too. I always thought that when I'm writing sheets or slugging boards, I just said, you're the animator doing this. If you have a good storyboard that you're slugging to, that you're writing sheets to, you write sheets to a storyboard. You follow the action based on a storyboard. And if the storyboard artist has put a lot of good poses into his board, I'm telling the animators how fast or how slow to come in and out of those poses. It's basically like I'm animating. I just don't have to do the drawings. I'm telling them how fast or how slow to do this stuff, or when to hold, when not to hold. So timing sheets is basically like just telling the animator what happens in each scene, and this is how fast or how slow it happens. This is a big explosion right here, so this thing has to hit this dynamite right here on this frame right here. You put an X on it, you tell them that's the frame. It's got to hit on. So that's basically what it is, if that makes any sense to you.
It makes perfect sense. And in fact, you actually did win an Emmy for that same project you were nominated for the following year in 2005. But in 2004, you won an Emmy for sheet timing on Samurai Jack for the Cartoon Network. Congratulations. I'm sure you have that in display case or what? Where do you keep your Emmy Award?
Well, on Friday nights, I used to put it on the hood of my Lincoln when I'd be driving that Venture Boulevard to Studio City. Not Hollywood, because it's not an Oscar. I couldn't go into Hollywood with it, but I could drive down to Studio City in the San Fernando Valley. And then all the other times I'd use it as a restroom doorstop because everybody who uses the restroom is going to see it. No, it's up on a shelf downstairs.
On the shelf. That's great. And you were nominated in 2004 for another project, The Powerpuff Girls. 'Twas the Fight Before Christmas for Cartoon Network.
I worked on tons of those. Yep, the Powerpuff Girls. Yeah, that was a very popular series.
And you were also nominated for Outstanding Animated Program for programming more than 1 hour in 1989 for Disney's DuckTales, for Super DuckTales for NBC.
Yep, I started on the second season of DuckTales, and I worked from the second season to the end of the road, and I worked on Treasure of the Lost Lamp, the feature that they did. Mm-hmm. I was at Disney, I think, for about 6 years, from 89 to 95, something like that.
Cool. Well, how does it feel to win an Emmy Award, to be recognized by the voters of the Academy, the Television Academy of Television Arts and Sciences? I mean, because that's an award for excellence. And you've been nominated all those times. How did it feel to win?
Well, it felt great to win, but I didn't know I had won until the next day because I didn't go that time, which is, go figure, right?
Yeah.
I went to so many of them. I mean, my friend Tom Mitten and I, he was a writer, head writer for the Sylvester Tweedy Mysteries that we both produced, and we felt like the Eric Kane of animation. We would get nominated and never win, and never win, and never win. And finally, my friend Robert Alvarez, my dearest, closest friend of 70 years, who dumpster dove with me, who went to art school with me, who worked in the business with me, who I still see to this day. I told him, I said, Robert, I don't want to go. I don't want to rent a tux. I don't want to rent a limo. I don't want to do all that stuff. We never win anyway. And naturally, don't you know, that's the time we won. And I could have had a great photograph of me and my best friend holding Oscars at the ceremony. But then I said, you know what? We need to take those Oscars, go to the building that Hanna-Barbera used to be in when we were dumpster diving, and stand in front of that trash can, and hold them there, and go from the trash can to the Emmys.
That's really cool. That's a great story. It's funny you're talking about Batman and the Joker. It sounded like a setup to a joke. Batman and Joker walk into a bar. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
now getting back to the beginning of your journey as an artist, was there a progression to your work? Like, meaning your style of artistry? Did you develop a style? Like, did you start illustrating backgrounds and then graduate to drawing principal characters, kind of like an actor first starting as an extra for set experience and then taking acting lessons, joining the Screen Actors Guild of America union, getting an agent and auditioning for and booking roles? Is that the process? Please describe your average working day also in an animation studio in the beginning. What was it like, and were you self-taught or did you receive formal art training?
Well, I went to, well, when I went to high school, I've told you this story. I beat up my way through high school because I was going to do animation. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about history, English or algebra. I don't care. I'm going to be an artist, an animator. So I would draw on the back of the test. I'd never answer the questions. They would, because I didn't care. And somehow I passed. I went to Chouinard Art School, which is where all the great Disney animators that animated in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, they all went there in downtown Los Angeles. And it became Cal Arts, California Institute of the Arts. The last year I was there, I graduated from the first Cal Arts graduation class in 1970. And while I was working there, I was in the animation department, and I had teachers who were working in the industry at the same time. So I started picking up work in the industry when I was still going to school. And I wanted to be an animator. So if you want to be an animator, you become an in-betweener first. And an in-betweener is a kid or gal that does these fill-in drawings. You know how the animator will draw the 2 extreme drawings or 3 extreme drawings, and then the in-betweener or the assistant animator will clean up his drawings, put it on model, make sure it spreads Flintstone or whoever it is. And then the in-betweener will fill in all the in-between drawings based on spacing charts that the animator puts down on the side of the drawing. It tells you where to put your drawing and make sure for his drawings. So it's basically you fill in all the in-between drawings. So if you're going to be an animator, that's where you start. Now, if I wanted to do background, I would be an apprentice in the background department and learn how to paint. So hopefully I had taken painting classes in college, art school. And then you get a job, you show paintings and stuff to whoever's hiring at the time. And they want me for background artists to bring paintings in and show them. If you want to be an animator, you're not interested in seeing paintings. They're interested in seeing figure drawings in action, code models posing. They're interested in what you can do with a pencil and draw. They're not interested in what you can do with paint and painting. But if you want to be a background artist, they want to see paintings. If you want to be a layout man, where you lay out what the background looks like and you lay out what the character's doing in that scene. Let's say Fred Flintstone is walking around a pool table and can shoot a pool ball. A layout artist would probably draw the background and the pool table, and then probably give you 2 or 3 poses of Fred, maybe one of Fred walking, and one of Fred stopping at a certain point, and one of Fred hitting the ball. And then the animator would take those 3 layout drawings and a background and take an exposure sheet based on an exposure sheet that a director would time out for him, and he would animate it based on how the director timed it out. And that's how they get the animation done. So it all depends on what you want to do. Some guys want to be storyboard artists. Well, if you want to be a storyboard artist, then you want to see what you can do with pencils. They also want to see what you can draw as backgrounds, because you have to put backgrounds into the storyboards. They don't have to be real elaborate, but just so that you can do them. And you go into storyboarding, and you hopefully become a storyboard artist. So there's any number of things to get into that you do. A lot of people go into editing too. They go from artwork into editing and they become editors. So that's how you do it. Now, so I was at art school, and I got lucky. I just walked into these jobs and never looked back. And I did 50 years in animation, and I wasn't laid off very much in that 50 years. I mean, maybe about a year over 50 years total, which is not much. Um, but that's how you do it now. And a day working, my average day as an assistant, let's say as an assistant animator, I'd come in the morning, and let's say I had to pick up work that morning. I would pick up work there'd be a production coordinator who would have all the scenes of animation that had been done by the animators, and then he would hand them out to the assistant animators. And you'd go through it, and you'd clean up the animators' drawings. Sometimes the animators would work real clean, and they were real tight, and they drew real well, so that was easy stuff. Other times, some of the animators the drawings were so rough, it took you forever to get them done because the guy left so much work for you. But you always knew his animation was really good because that's why he was an animator. So I would come in, and it's like any other kind of job. You'd get there about, gosh, I used to get there real early at times, 7, 8 in the morning. But most guys would get there about 9 o'clock, something like that. And you work till like 10:30, 11 o'clock, take a break for 15 minutes. Then you work till 12:30. And what's funny, when I was at Hanna-Barbera, there was a group of old-timers there that used to work at Disney's and Warner Brothers and MGM and all that together. And there was an animator who sat in the cubicle next to me. His name was Bolus Jones. It was an old Disney animator. Donald Duck and Huey, Dewey, Louie, and all those characters. And all morning long, these animators would come by his cubicle, and he'd say, "You got your lunch with you?" "Yeah, Bolus, I got my peanut butter sandwiches and chips." "Okay, I'll see you down at the car." "All right, see you down at the car." They'd all come by, it'd be about 10 or 12 of them, and they'd all be down at the cars at 12:30 at lunch hour. They'd take 2 cars, they'd go screaming out of the parking lot, slide into a 4-wheel slide in front of the Oakcrest Market, run in and get a quart of vodka, and they'd wind up at one of their houses out by the pool, and they'd have 3 martinis and a tuna fish sandwich or chips or whatever, and they'd be back at their desk at 1:30 working. Now, I watched this parade come and go 365 days a week, a year, for 5 years easily. And I thought, man, this is the program I got to teach. I love this. But this is back when I liked to Bible with it too. So some of the younger guys used to go up the street to a bar called the casting office. And we'd get in there at 10:30 break, and they'd be calling us at 5 o'clock saying, "Are you guys going to come back or should we turn the lights off?" And then there'd be a long pause, and we'd say, "Oh, turn the lights off." But what happened was that if you give them 100 feet, if you animate 100 feet a week for the studio, that's all they care about. You give them 100 feet a week, and they give you your paycheck. If you do any more than, let's say you do 120 feet a week, they'll give you bonus money for that 20 extra feet. Anything over 100 feet, they give you bonus money for. So my friend and I, one of my close friends and I, we always had bonus footage. We always had 110, 115, 130, whatever. We always had bonus footage. So they never bothered us. So we could do whatever we wanted. But if you had under, if you kept coming in like 75 feet, 80 feet, 60 feet, whatever, you do that for a few weeks, you'd get in trouble. So, and sometimes you couldn't get 100 feet because there'd be so much going on in the scenes. It was just too hard to do. There was so much action.
Right.
But that usually works itself out. I mean, if you got a couple of weeks where you have low footage, you'd probably get a few 2 3 weeks after that. You get real high footage and make bonus money, and it all work itself out in the wash. Okay, but I loved what I did, so I had a blast. When I would get animation to do, I think of it as this is a Disney animator telling me this is what he wants, or a Disney director. And I would learn from them and learn from the guys, the old timers that were there. And the old timers, the really great ones, were happy as heck to show you how to do anything.
So you were paid right out of the gate. I mean, you weren't like an intern or anything, correct? Or am I?
No. You got paid right out the gate. You did like.
What was your first paid job? Forgive me. I know you've mentioned it before. But please repeat. What was your first paid job as an animator?
My first real paid job in industry was at a place called Fine Arts Films. And it was a film called Archie and the Head about Shinbone Alley. And I think my take-home, I was an in-betweener. I think my take-home pay was $68 a week, and that was 1969.
Why?
68.
Would you please reiterate what is an in-betweener? I know you've mentioned it before, but just please repeat that.
An in-betweener an assistant animator cleans up the animator's roughs to make them look exactly like the character with all the gingerbread that the character's got on his costume and stuff. And then the in-betweener fills in all the in-between drawings. So, like, there might be 3 drawings in between 2 drawings, or there might be 1 drawing in between, or there might be 25 drawings in between. If something's moving very slowly, that's a lot of drawings to make it move slow. If it's moving very quickly, that's very few drawings. So it just depends on what the action is, but the in-betweener fills in the in-between drawings. Exactly what it sounds like.
Interesting. Well, that's cool. It sounds like you're a natural and you achieved your dream as a paid animator through a lot of luck as well as skill and persistence. And it's a lot like what you talked about. Sounds like a sales job where the boss doesn't care what you do as long as your numbers are right.
Right. As long as the numbers
You had
are
a quota as well, just on an animated.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's
Production.
It's like when I went into directing and started filling out exposure sheets. You know, they wanted as much as they could get them, but to get a weekly check, I think they wanted like 1,000 feet a week, something like that. And I would always do more.
Good.
I had a great work ethic. I
Good.
don't know where I got it from. I must have got it from my parents or something.
Because you're doing what you love too. That helps.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would do
You had passion and drive. Sorry.
And if I picked up a section of work that was on Monday and it was due the following Monday, I would always turn it in the Friday at the end of the week, or Thursday night. I would turn it in. That way, I always was working. If you turned it in the following Tuesday or Wednesday, you're going to find yourself out of a job if you keep that up, because you just screw around. And there were people that did that, and they couldn't understand why they never got hired again.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that kind of stuff.
Now, what happens to your artwork? Does it become property of the studio?
Yeah,
Or what?
It's all property of the studio, and a lot of it gets. So some of it gets saved, but not much of it. A lot of it gets thrown out because you're talking tons and tons of artwork that you have to warehouse this stuff in unbelievably huge places, and they weren't, especially early on. Now, lately, for a long time, Warner's and the big places have saved artwork and saved some stuff. But I'm sure periodically they would go through these warehouses and dump stuff because they couldn't save it all. It's just too much.
Like Hanna-Barbera when you were a kid in the trash can,
Right.
dumpster diving.
Well, they were in business to make those shows. There was no business of selling cells and that kind of stuff. There's no market in those days. I mean, they would make setups and give them to people when they come on tours through the studio, or they'd send them to people that would ask for something or whatever, things like that. But they couldn't. There's no way they could save all that stuff because they were just barely making it to stay alive.
What about copies? Could you make copies, and did you make copies of your work, of some of the stuff you really liked?
I could make copies, but I really didn't. I've got a couple of scenes here. There was a feature film called Metamorphosis, Wings of Change. That was made by a company called Sanrio that did Hello Kitty in Japan. In 1976 that I worked for, I think 75, 76. I dropped the phone. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Feedback going on.
This is Sanrio. They did Hello Kitty in Japan, and they came to L.A. They wanted to do an animated feature. They were red hot to do an animated feature, and it was all Greek mythology. And I had a scene of Perseus who has wings on his feet. A scene of Perseus where he first gets his wings on his feet. He's just trying them out, and he's off balance and doing all kinds of good things and stuff, flying through the sky and stuff. I had the artwork for that. It's the animation scene of that I kept. In fact, I was going to send it to my youngest son back in Missouri, so he has it. But I really didn't save too much of my work, and I'm going to have some miscellaneous drawings here from some of the things. But all I've got now is just a ton of watercolors.
Mm-hmm. Now, I love your work, and you're a great, great person to interact with on social media because you're always posting new artwork. And I love looking at your art. And for the camera, I'm going to show some of your art in your book, Shaken Not Broken. We'll talk about the human interest part of your story in a little bit. But now, you are retired now from working in film and television, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you're comfortable.
Oh yeah, I retired in 2014, I think it was. Yeah.
Because you have credits
Yeah.
going into 2016, but maybe it took time for these things to be released, and you'd already completed that work, I guess. In some cases, I guess.
Yeah, I did it. What was that? I brought my first book out in 2016. Is that what you said?
Well, hey, it's great that they're still doing old school animation. Because my next question is, now that you're retired, you can, of course, you'd always be honest and frank, but if you were still working as a professional illustrator, how do you feel about computer generated animated imagery? And would that affect your ability to work? Or would you adapt to that form? How do you feel about CGI art?
I would have to adapt. I would have to adapt to it. I'm not big on the computer.
Yeah.
I'm really computer illiterate. I don't do anything on the computer stuff. You know, go to YouTube, look at eBay for stuff, and maybe once in a while I'll send somebody a note if it's something simple. But file stuff away and do all this, that, and everything, I can't do any of that stuff, and I don't care. I don't want to.
It's like cheating. In my opinion, it's cheating when you use a computer. You're not using your hand, your eye, your brain. In my opinion,
Right.
I mean, you're using your brain to an extent, but it's kind of like a cookie cutter operation, in my opinion. But I've never worked in that field. That's just my opinion of what I think it is about and what it's like.
I think it can be. I think it can be a good. It can be a good tool for animation if you're doing technical things, like a character walking down a street and turning a corner and walking into the distance and animating. Where you're using geometric shapes that you can basically turn into buildings and whatever, and you can put your animation, character animation into that. It helps to do that stuff, the background stuff. But as far as doing the actual characters, it's getting better and better. Don't get me wrong, it's getting better and better at doing characters. But I don't know, there's just something sterile about that stuff that I just don't care for, and I just have never bothered with it, so I don't know. I just love
That's cool.
I just love to jot down some pencil on paper and slap some watercolor on it, and hope that it turns out well, and go from there.
Very good. That's awesome. So let's see. My next question. Well, now you've talked a little bit about this. Your work environment, it sounds like it was very pleasant. Like in the podcast world, people help each other out and promote and support each other, unlike radio. In radio, it's very cutthroat, ego-driven, with a few exceptions, like a station I worked for, WYY, and other stations in Cumulus, especially YY. Those guys were pretty friendly and supportive. But generally in radio, it's very, very much not a friendly environment. What was your work environment like? You've talked about this a little bit. Would you expand on that, please?
Well, my work environment was really, I always enjoyed it. It was pretty good. There was always guys, you're always going to run into people that will do anything to get your job, or whatever, bad mouth or whatever they're going to do.
Oh, man.
But that wasn't too much of that. It's really based on how you deliver. If you can, like I say, if they needed 100 feet a week out of you, and you can give them more than 100 feet a week, you're going to be working.
Right.
And if it's good work, if it's good work with not many retakes or no retakes, all the better.
Go ahead.
Retakes are when something doesn't work on a scene you've animated, and for some reason, or directed, and for some reason, if it was the animator overseas, because they send so much stuff overseas nowadays, and they have been for years, if it doesn't work and it's the fault of overseas animator or whatever, they have to pay for the retake. But if it's our fault, say we leave something off the exposure sheet or somebody timed it wrong, then we have to pay for it.
Oh, man.
So,
bummer.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen too much. That stuff evens itself out. But there's always going to be, I've always found that most of the people I hung with in all my years in the industry, they were all kids like me that grew up loving cartoons and wanted to do cartoons. And I always said there are people that love cartoons and always wanted to do them. There are people that are good artists that couldn't get a job. Well, animation was a very easy industry to get into for a long time if you could draw. So people would get in that. People would want to be the next great illustrator or whatever. When they got out of art school, there were no real jobs for artists. Because there were so many great guys that had been doing what they wanted to do for years, they'd get into animation thinking, well, I'll get into animation I'll do this for like 3 or 4 years, and then I'll find a better gig. Well, now they're in animation 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and they hate it because they never got to do what they wanted to do. They wanted to be the next great illustrator, the next great painter, whatever. They never did that stuff, so they hate animation because that's what they've been stuck doing, and consequently, you get a lousy product from them. They turn out junk. But then there's the other side of the coin, where you get people that they want to be great illustrators and painters. They get into animation, and 5 years later, they find that they loved animation, and they give you great work.
That's
There's
cool.
those guys.
Hey, well, may I ask you another quick question?
Sure.
All right, or did you want to finish that thought?
No, that's it. I mean, I very rarely have problems with anybody, really. And they're always usually pretty nice guys. And I feel, if I'm a nice guy, they're going to be a nice guy. So it's always better when you're a nice guy.
The
So.
golden rule. The golden rule. Were your supervisors throughout your career, your illustrious, pun intended, career, were your supervisors receptive to your ideas? Did you create new characters, or did you improve on existing characters?
No, I never did any of that because I was not a character designer. I didn't want to be a character designer. I wanted to be an animator. So an animator, by the time the animation gets to me, the characters are so well defined, so well drawn and designed that I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is just animate them.
And do the feet. You do your 100 feet a week or whatever they want you to do, and you get a check, bada bang, you go home happy.
That's it.
All right.
That's it. I'm unhappy for a number of years.
May I tell you a quick story about a character I created and how I got screwed over?
Please.
Okay. All right. Back in the 80s, in 1984, when I was 13 years old, I submitted a character to Marvel Comics and they took it from me. This is honest to goodness truth. I created a character that they called Madcap, but I called him Happy. And he was like a demented happy face. So you can imagine like a yellow, jagged-eyed happy face. And his power was he could drive people insane by staring at him. And this was in response to a promotion that Marvel Comics did. This is under Jim Shooter, who was the man in charge out of New York City at the time. And they were begging for submissions. And they had a contest for a book called the Marvel Tryout Book, where the winner would get to draw a Marvel comic book. But they said along the way, for months, even after the contest was over, they were begging for submissions. And they said, you will get the benefits of an artist and a writer, and you'll get credit. And I wonder how many kids like me, kid at the time, were taken advantage of. But let's see, I remember I've submitted, it was September 1984, a full-page, full-color drawing of this character I called Happy. And the only thing they changed was they put a hat on him and called him Madcap. And the crazy thing, Jim, is that when he first debuted, it was in Captain America issue number 307, and that had a July 1985 cover date, but it actually hit the newsstands in April 85. It was always 3 months ahead for distribution purposes. And the comic came out. I showed my friends. I had a draft table, an artist draft table at the time. And I did it in the style of something called the Marvel Official Handbook to the Marvel Universe, which was a limited series in alphabetical order that would show every Marvel character in alphabetical order, a full sketch of full body shot, and then there'd be a synopsis telling what the character can do and what their first appearance was in Marvel comic books. So I submitted it in full color, and I was just shocked when the comic came out. And my parents always took the position, well, you should be flattered. Imitation is a sincerest form of flattery, but my good buddy and his friend of the Nostalgic Podblast and a frequent guest and co-host, Danny Cochran, he's more mad than I am. But now get this, there's a rumor that Madcap, the character I created, is going to be in a movie, a Marvel movie with Deadpool. It's either going to be a Deadpool movie or another character, and they've been merchandising him. He had a comeback starting in about 2010. So this was the 80s, and I was a kid. So people might ask, why did you wait so long? Well, my parents discouraged me from doing anything. What could I do? I mean, I'm like 13 years old, 14 years old. So anyway, it was frustrating, but who was credited for creating Madcap was Mark Gruenwald, who sadly died in 1996, and a British-born artist named Paul Neary, Neary. He's still alive. I wish I could talk with him, but Danny always says there's got to be someone at the Marvel office in New York that saw that knows it, and I didn't make a copy of it. I have some of my original art from those days, but I could have. Back in the 80s, there was. I don't think there was a Kinko's. Maybe there was, but copiers weren't that prevalent. There wasn't a scanner. There wasn't a printer where you could make a copy. But let me just quickly say, and we'll get back to you. This is not about me. I'm not trying to make it about me. But two issues later, Captain America 309, well, when he first was introduced, he had a gun that would drive people insane. Then 2 issues later, Madcap returned, and it was revealed, oh, I don't need the gun. I can just stare at you and drive you crazy. And so they slowly misappropriated my intellectual property. It just bothers me to this day. Anyway.
Wow.
But enough about that. I digress.
I did some work at Marvel Animation.
You did?
Yeah, I worked on G.I. Joe and...
oh, yeah, for Hasbro? Oh.
Yeah, Hasbro. And Transformers.
Oh, my God.
And...
like the comic book, or was it the animated show?
It was animation.
Of course, that's your forte. That's awesome. I love the theme song. More than meets the eye, Transformers. That's cool.
Yeah. Wasn't it T-Rex or something like that? Or
yeah. Yeah.
Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime. Yes. Did you ever see the movies? Did you see the live-action movies?
I saw the first one. It was pretty good.
Yeah, with Shia LaBeouf. Yeah. And Megan Fox. She's pretty sexy, huh?
Oh man, I know nothing about that. I'm weak.
You're married, so you're very much a diplomat. I like that. Which was your favorite studio to work with, and why?
Well, my favorite studio to work at was Hanna-Barbera because it felt like a real cartoon studio, and I mean, the paint, you could smell the paint from the ink and paint department. You could. They had film. There were editors, and we were looking at stuff on Moviolas, and there were old timers there Tex Avery was there.
Oh God, the great Tex Avery. You said you could smell the paint, meaning the paint that you draw with. That's what you mean?
Yeah, the paint that they would paint on the cells in the background.
I love the smell of ink too. That for an artist pen, for pen and ink artwork. Anyway, not that I would sniff it or anything like that scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High with Mr. Hand or something. I just love the way ink smells.
It felt like a real studio, It was like
Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, they were doing designs and storyboards and layouts and animating and assisting and ink and paint, and designing characters. Sure, they weren't great shows or anything, but it was a working studio, and I had a blast there. I couldn't wait to get to work.
Oh,
we had a lot of fun working there, screwing around. We screwed around like crazy.
That's cool.
But pretty much all the other places were good too. I mean. Some of them were a little tighter than others, but there wasn't a bad this weekend, really.
Well, Mr. Walker, what surprises me, speaking of Hanna-Barbera, is that, of course, the Flintstones, the original run lasted 6 seasons, but the Jetsons only lasted 30 episodes, and Top Cat 30 episodes. That blows my mind. The original prime-time versions of those shows, they didn't last. And I did some research. It's because they had some stiff competition and bad scheduling. But doesn't it seem like there was more than one season of the original Jetsons to you, or did you know? Because you were around, you were alive then.
I knew because I was getting those cells out of the trash on a regular basis.
What'd you say? Can you repeat that?
I was getting those Jetson cells out of the trash can on a regular basis. I had them flying in their saucers. I had the backgrounds with the buildings on them and stuff on the stilts and everything.
Whoa! Where is it? Do you still have those cells?
No.
What did you sell them?
Oh God! If I had sold them, I'd be dead today probably because I would have died drunk in a hot tub and would have drowned from all the money I would have made on them. You know what? I had thousands of. I have 2 Flintstones hanging on the wall right now. One is Fred walking around the pool table. It's from the one where they go to the racetrack, and they've been on 2 dinosaurs. They've been on a dinosaur against some other guy. And it's from the first season. I think it's on the 7th episode or something. And then the other one is Fred smoking a Winston cigarette.
That's awesome!
Yeah, it's from the end credits.
Yes.
1960. He's sitting in front of his TV set. It's the background. It's the cell. It's all original.
That's on YouTube, by the way, folks. If you want to see that ad, look up Flintstones Winston cigarette. It's out there from 16mm film.
It's a guy offered me $10,000 for it. And I said, you know what? That's a great offer, but I can't because it's the only one I've got left. It's my childhood. I'll never see it again.
That's a lowball offer. 10 grand's the lowball offer, man. Good thing you didn't sell it. Great call there.
I wouldn't sell it. I do have a nice Tom and Jerry of a conductor on the Heavenly Express. It's called Heavenly Puss, 1948. And it's got the conductor handing Tom a pass to heaven. You get on the Heavenly Express, and Jerry's standing behind the conductor, shaking and saying, "No, don't let him on here, don't let him on here." It's an original setup that my friend Ray Patterson did behind the show.
Wow.
He was the guy that directed. We showed him how to do cartoon directing.
Incredible. And I love that Winston ad. Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. And Fred and Barney are loafing while the women do all the work. Now, have you put that on social media, that cell? Have you ever? Or are you keeping that private?
I've had it on my Facebook, but this is not a cell from that background. This is a cell from the end credits.
Right.
When Fred is sitting in front of the TV set, and he picks the Winston out of the cigarette case that Wilma's holding or somebody's holding, and he's looking back at the camera. He's just blowing some smoke, and they were sponsored by Winston. And if you remember, maybe you've never seen these. They did Flintstone ashtrays in 61.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I've got all of them. There's 6 of them. There's one with Fred and Wilma and Betty and Barney, one of each of those, and then one of each one of the characters for 6. And I thought this is so cool. I'm gonna buy these ashtrays because they were only on for like 1 or 2 seasons, and they would change sponsorship. And I think in Flintstones cigarettes, man, this is cool. I'm gonna get these, and I've got them today. I've got them all these years.
Were you a smoker ever?
No, I smoked the equivalent of 1 pack of cigarettes my whole high school, 4 years of high school, and I never liked it. I never did, and consequently, I don't smoke it. I smoked a lot of loco weed, let's say, in the day.
The wacky tobacco. Hey,
yeah, wacky tobacco.
In our Nostalgic Podblast 8th, this is our 68th show, by the way, and happy to have you here, James Tim Walker, professional animator, retired now, Emmy-winning animator. You're awesome. But we're going to play the Winston ad that you described, that we discussed, where Fred and Barney are loafing. But we did it back in Podblast 8, and just a little self-plug, every Thursday night, I do a live, what I call the Podblast flashback, to get the ones on YouTube where we didn't necessarily put them all on camera. Now everything's on camera, obviously. And by the way, when you come back, and we're going to talk about your human interest story in just a moment, we'll do it on Zoom. I want people to see you where I can show your art. And is it okay if I show on camera some of your artwork from your book later?
Absolutely, but let me ask you a question. Are you on Zoom now?
No, this is audio. I'm on Facebook Live, and it's going to be on YouTube. This will be on YouTube, and all you see is my stupid face, and we hear you. That's all.
So
and your book, but your book is prominently shown throughout this whole presentation. I have it well lit.
Show whatever you want. That's fine with me.
Cool. I mean, I'm just going to open it up for the camera and show it off a little bit. So if you're listening on fistfulofradio.com, if you're listening on a podcast or Apple Podcasts, please go to the YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast, or join the Facebook group, The Nostalgic Podblast. You can see some of James' incredible art.
Can I get on it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a delay. If you go on Facebook Live now, we're live now on Facebook. I mean, people are commenting and stuff. If you go to the group, I know you're a member of it, the Nostalgic Podblast group, you will see it. Now, we're competing with the Olympics, so I don't think there's most people watch or listen after the fact, but there's some folks watching right now, I think. Let me see if there's any other comments. But yeah, you can join on, sign on, and you will see what I'm talking about. You can see your book and then my fat head.
Did I leave the sound down on that and keep the sound on the phone up?
Yes, there'll be a delay that will cause feedback. Correct. So mute the video, but you can see your book.
Am I going on?
If you go to Facebook, and I'm going to ask you, I can talk while you do that. But Facebook group, The Nostalgic Podblast, and mute it, and then you can see your book right there. So, I have another question for you. All right, you've mentioned that Hanna-Barbera was your pride and joy studio to work for. Thank you for sharing that. But was there a project or a studio you would have liked or tried to work on, but didn't for whatever reason?
Boy, let's see. Well, I would like to have worked on a Disney feature, although from 70 to like, they didn't do anything any good until 70 was, I think, like, what was the 70? The Fox and the Hounds, that kind of stuff. The Aristocats. So I don't know, the stuff that was, it just wasn't interesting to me at all.
Right.
So I always thought I was going to be one of these guys that never worked at Disney. And I was working at Hanna-Barbera. I got laid off. And
I'm sorry.
I got laid off, and a week later, Ray Patterson called me and wanted me to come back. And I had just gotten a phone call from a friend at Disney that said, look, I'm starting DuckTales. I want you to come on and be the plugging director. And I said, okay, fine, I'll go do that. And it broke my heart to turn Ray down because he was such a great man and taught me so much. But I said, I've never worked at Disney. Let me give this a try. And he said, you should do that. Go do that. So I went to Disney's and I did 5 years there. I got a producer's credit on Tailspin, and
great.
on Darkwing Duck, and on DuckTales, and I wanted to just get a producer's credit because it would look good on a resume.
Wow.
And I got that, and then I was with Warner's for 27 years after that. So, okay, now this says Chance Bartels stared in videos and stuff. Here's the thing that shows my picture. Can I push on this? And this was live with Emmy.
What's that?
I got Chance Bartels tagged you in the Nostalgia Podcast.
Oh, cool. Yeah. You can see your book, right? You see your book sitting there?
I see the book.
Good.
I see the book.
And you see my fat head?
Right.
Hey.
This is just phones, isn't it?
Yeah. There'll be a delay. There's a 30-second delay with Facebook versus. So talking to the phone, of course, as you know, you've done radio interviews and media interviews. You've been on CBS this morning. So you know the drill. Now, I have to ask you, is there a current project that you wish you could work on, even though you're retired, just because you have the drive and the passion? Huh?
I don't think that there is because I don't really watch the stuff anymore, quite frankly. I usually watch old cartoons. If I'm going to watch cartoons, or I'll watch old black and white movies or something.
All right.
Haven't seen any new stuff. I'm trying to think. Is there anything I've seen? I think some of the stuff that I like that I have seen, I guess, would be some of the Cartoon Network stuff I like, and some of the Warner stuff I like.
Adult Swim? Adult Swim?
Yeah, Adult Swim. I like that. I like the one that was it? Harvey Birdman, Lawyer at Law, or something like that, or. What was that? There was one that was an old one, and there was one where Fred Flintstone was suing somebody. It was hysterical. Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, something like that. It was an Adult Swim thing, I guess, something like that. But I just haven't watched that much of it anymore. So
Yeah. I'm going to play some music. I hope you can hear this. Just stand by for about 30 seconds. This is a TV show theme, and this ties into my next question, and this has nothing to do with animation. This is a fascinating new aspect of your life that I want to talk about. Now, I'm going to play this theme. I don't know if you can hear it. Here we go. It's a Sammy Davis Jr. song. Stand by. It's the Beretta theme. I know. Hang on. I was playing the Beretta theme because after our first interview together, I saw a video of you on the witness stand at the murder trial for Robert Blake, the star of Beretta and In Cold Blood, the movie from 1967, and Helltown in 85. What, were you a courtroom sketch artist or something? What's that all about?
No, I wasn't, but I'll tell you, I got the courtroom art that the woman drew of me. And boy, if I look like that, I look like I've really gone to sea. Let me tell you. I'll tell you what happened. The restaurant, in fact, my wife and I are going to that restaurant tonight for dinner.
Tonight?
Yeah,
I'll be damned.
The restaurant
I'll be darned.
is called Bartels. Italian food, Bartels. And we were there one night. We'd gone there several times over the years. And they had a pasta Robert Blake on the menu. And it was spinach and marinara sauce and pasta and garlic and all that. And I loved it. And I used to get it all the time. So one time, this particular night, the night he was there, I was there with my wife and another friend, and we had dinner, and we got up to leave, and we turned and walked towards the door, and we walked right into Steve, the owner. And I know Steve from going there so much. Steve says to me, "Hi, Tim, how are you? How was dinner? What'd you have?" And I said, "I'm great. Dinner was fabulous, and I had my favorite, the pasta around the plate." And he says, "Oh, well, that's funny. He's sitting right over there." And he gestures behind him. And I had to go out of the building. I had to walk around him, go behind him, and turn to my left and go through another door to go up to the little foyer, whatever it is, to go out the front door, right?
Right.
So as I walked around him and turned to look back, I saw Robert Blake back in this little alcove where there's like 4 tables. It's kind of separated off a little bit. I couldn't see his wife because his wife was in a seat across from him with a curtain above it, so you couldn't see anybody. But I could see him because I could see the whole seat that him sitting against the wall looking towards me. So he looked at me and I looked at him, and I gave him kind of a heads up and a nod, and, you know, "Hi, how are you?" And I mean, I'm a fan. I grew up with the Little Rascals and all that stuff, and I watched Beretta and all that. And so I didn't think anything of it. So, of course, next morning I see the newspaper and all hell's broken loose, and the wife is dead, and Robert's in jail, and all this. And so about 6 months later, we were in the restaurant one night, and Steve comes up to me and says, "Hey, Tim, I think the attorneys want to talk to you because you made contact with Robert Blake the night of the thing."
Holy crap. Wait, may I just stop you? Were you subpoenaed?
Yeah, I was subpoenaed, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I was. And he said they want to talk to everybody that had any kind of contact with him. I said, "Okay, that's fine." So he said, "Can I give him your phone number?" I said, "Sure, go ahead." So about another 6 months went by, and I got a call from his lawyer, and they subpoenaed me. And they said, "Look, we're just going to ask you a few questions. You'll probably be on the stand in 5-10 minutes, something like that." So okay, fine, that's fine. So I got subpoenaed. I had to go to the Van Nuys courthouse the day of the subpoena, so I went, and they called me up on the stand, and now they said they had a layout of a restaurant, all the seats and chairs and everything. And they said, "Now, where were you sitting when you were there?" And then I showed them where I was sitting. "Now, where was Robert Blake sitting?" I showed him over here. And he said, "Now, do you know Robert Blake?" "No, I don't know him." "You know who he is, though, right?" "Yes, I know who he is." And they said, "What was his demeanor when you saw him that night?" And I said, "Well, he didn't look distraught. He didn't look excited or happy or anything. He just looked like the guy having dinner. You know, he was kind of nondescriptive, not too over the top about anything, just very nondescriptive." And that's about all they asked me. You know, they didn't ask me much more than that. They said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a cartoonist," and what I've worked on, and that was all they asked me.
What's the name of that restaurant again?
It's Bartels.
Italian, huh?
Yeah, Italian restaurant, great food. But that's all they asked me, and then I this was before they had a sketch artist in there doing people testifying, drawing people. This was before they had cameras in there. So I got hold of the lawyer, and I said, "What about the woman who did the drawings of the people testifying?" And they gave me the phone number. I called her, and I said, "Do you sell them?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Well, I want mine." "Absolutely, you can have it, no problem. I think it cost me $100 or something." And I bought it, and when we can show stuff on here, I'll send you a copy, and you can put it up. But anyway, I have since that time gotten to know Robert very well.
Oh.
And we speak not quite often anymore, but we used to. And
He's still alive, of course. He's free. Yeah.
yeah,
This is a no judgment zone. I just love hearing your story. I'll shut up now.
Yeah. I don't make any judgment. I can tell you what I think, but that doesn't matter. He's about 85 now, 86.
Yeah.
And he's slowed way down. But I met him, and he heard me tell my story one day. And
we're going to get to that next. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And he started talking. And he said, I've been around a lot of tough stuntmen over the years. I've been in jail. I've been with the real crooks, the real deal, the real guys, tough sons of guns, and all this stuff. I've been around really, really tough people.
Yeah.
And you look at me,
Damn.
and he said, "You're the toughest son of a bitch I've ever met." And he meant it. He meant it. He had heard my story. He heard me tell my story. And we became fast friends. And I autographed a book and gave it to him, and he autographed one of his books. And he gave it to me, and he says, "Tim, we're brothers joined at the hip."
Wow. And
And
I'd forgotten he was in our gang, which most people know as the Little Rascals from King World Syndication. And, he's 87 years old, born September 18th, 1933 in Nutley, New Jersey.
Wow.
He's 5'4" tall. He's short, huh?
Yeah, I'm short. My birthday's the 17th, and my son's birthday's the 18th.
I'll be darned. My dad's birthday September 20th. Does he really have a bird, or was that just the writers of Beretta? Okay.
That was the show.
Yeah, I figured.
I
was just wondering about that.
But he's a quiet guy.
Right.
He's just, my take on him nowadays, he's just a real quiet guy.
Now
I call him periodically just to say hi and keep him a little active and keep him a little involved. I tell him what I'm doing, whatever, and he likes to hear that. So
good for you.
I enjoy it. Yeah.
Good for you. Now we're getting you've alluded to this. Please describe what happened to you medically, which almost destroyed you personally and your craft completely.
Okay. So I have confided in you before that I am a proud member of the 12-step group that has kept me clean and sober for 22 years now. I'm not preaching anything to anybody. I only know about me.
Higher power, baby.
It's me. Higher power. You got that right. So I had a bit of a problem and came very close to being canned from the industry. But luckily I found this program and I pulled myself out, and everything was great. Everything was great.
How many years have you been sober?
22.
God bless you.
22 years without a drop or a toke or running.
No drugs, no alcohol. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's the miracle the program gave me. Anyway, at 8 years of sobriety, life destroyed me. Absolutely destroyed me. I started to notice a weakness in my right arm. And I thought, well, this has got to be carpal tunnel syndrome.
That's the arm you draw with, correct? Or drew with?
Yeah, that's right. This has got to be carpal tunnel. I've done so much drawing and so much writing over 40 some odd years of animation. It's got to be carpal tunnel syndrome. So I go to the doctor. A friend of mine who's a doctor, my regular doctor, and he says, "You got to go see a neurologist." So I go to the neurologist, and he throws a left hook that drops me right to the ground. Lateral Parkinson's disease on my right side. It destroys my right arm, and it destroys my ability to draw, and it destroys me on the spot. Absolutely destroys me. I am livid. I am crushed. I have a resentment against everybody, everything, and my higher power's right at the top. How could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? I don't rob people. I don't murder people. I'm a pretty decent guy most of the time. I try to do good most of the time. How could you do this to me? My best alcoholic thinking was to load my car with Absolute, my poison of choice, drive to Mexico, and shake and bake into oblivion because you're through. It's over. You're through. You better accept it because there is no cure for this stuff. It is a horrid, horrid, horrid disease.
Serenity prayer. Serenity prayer time, brother.
That's right. So that was my best alcoholic thinking for about 43 seconds. And then there was a moment of clarity. God, I can't do this. I am not strong enough to do this. I cannot do this. I need help, and I need help right now. Right now, I am not strong enough to do this. And I am convinced, and I will be convinced till the day I die, a power greater than self revealed to me what to do now. It's to be of service in every aspect of my life. Home, work, program, and on the street. And by the way, you have a left hand. I went to the bookstore. I went to the bookstore. I bought a sketchbook. I opened it up with my left hand for the first time in my life. I wrote across the top page, drawings from the left. And I taught myself to draw and write left-handed and saved a career. I didn't do that. A power greater than self did that. A 12-step program with people that share their experience, strength, and hope so I can stay sober one day at a time did that. That was 16 years ago. And I have not written a book yet.
Congratulations.
And I taught myself to draw and write, and I saved a career. And I was drawing left-handed sketchbooks. I walked into a Borders bookstore at Christmas time, and I saw all these sketchbooks for sale for $1. They were blowing them out, and I was doing all kinds of directing at the time. And I thought to myself, you miserable little dollar spit, what's wrong with you? Why are you in animation? Because you love to draw. You haven't drawn anything worth a damn 12 years. So I started drawing that day. I would go to my meetings every morning to this group of guys, this ragtag group of guys. And I would draw and listen, draw and listen, draw and listen. And one day, my wife, who's a great artist, she looked at one of my left-handed sketchbooks. And she said, my God, I can't tell the difference between your left and your right hand. I can't tell the difference. And I thought, wow, maybe there's something more going on here than I'm thinking. And that's when I decided to self-publish some books just for inspiration for people. So the first one I did was drawings from the left of Parkinson's pictures, which I don't have anymore. They're very limited runs. They're only like a couple thousand each. But the second book, which I still have a few of, is called Shaken Not Broken, An Artist's Journey Through Hell.
Which is on camera right now.
That's it, right there. Yes. And you can show whatever you want. That'll be fine.
I will, right now.
What I'm getting at in all this is I had the door of a 50-year career of animation come to a close. But the door of hope and inspiration opened. And it opened for me to give other people hope and inspiration. You never, ever give up. Ever. Ever. That's my wife, my daughter, my sons, and my grandson and granddaughter.
There's a lot of people struggling in the audience. This is the inspirational message. Don't give up that I was talking about.
Never give up. Never, ever give up, ever.
So are these illustrations all done with your left hand that's in this book?
Yes.
Wow. You had to re-educate yourself, and
Yes.
that's got to be more than just you, like you said.
It has to be. It has to be. I can't do this on my own. I'm powerless. I can't do this on my own. People ask me all the time. They ask me, how are you doing this? How do you act like there's nothing wrong? How are you not doing this without taking a drink, shooting yourself in the head, or drugging? And I say one answer only. Power greater than self is carrying me through life. End of story.
And it's about choices in life. You said before, you could have chosen to go to Mexico with a case of tequila and got in a fetal position, curled up in a ball in a hotel room, in a seedy hotel room filled with roaches, and drank yourself to death. And you didn't.
That's right.
It's incredible. Now, you told me on the phone yesterday that there's something coming up.
The one there of me standing in front of the light. That was
Yeah, I showed that. Yep.
Beginning. That's me standing in front of the power greater than self.
I thought as much. That's awesome. I thank you for confirming what I assumed that was what that picture was about.
Yeah, that's it.
There's a delay. I'm holding it up again for anyone that's listening. Go to the YouTube channel, the Nostalgic Podblast.
Yeah, that one right there. That's it.
Would you please? Do you have some breaking news? There's something really exciting in the month of August 2021 that you're going to be a part of. Would you please speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. About a month ago, I was contacted by Stanford Neurology, at Stanford University's neurology department. And my neurologist has a office in Fresno and an office in LA. And when she's in Fresno, she goes to Stanford quite a bit. And she told them about me and my artwork. And so they called me. They wanted to interview me and see if I would be a candidate for the deep brain stimulant operation, which is the operation that they do for people with Parkinson's disease. And they've had 70 to 80% not survival, but what's the word I'm looking for? Success with this operation. So they interviewed me over the phone. They did a Zoom interview, and then they said, "We want you to come up and do an on-site interview." So we went up to Stanford, and they put me through the paces. They put me through all the tests and everything, and they said, "You will do really well with the deep brain stimulant operation because you've done so well with the meds. You'll do well with the deep brain stimulant." And what they do is they drill 2 small holes into your brain. There's no nervous system in your brain, so there's no feeling. They place 2 electrodes in your brain hooked up to a battery pack like a pacemaker, and it stimulates your nervous system electronically, where yours is stimulated by the chemicals your brain still manufactures, but my brain doesn't. So that's what I have Parkinson's. And Parkinson's is not the movement and shaking that you normally see a person doing. That is caused by the meds you take. The meds cause all this dysfunctional movement and shaking. So they said that if I do well with the operation, which they assume I will, that they'll be able to cut half my meds out, which is a huge amount of meds cut out. So anyway, they put me through these paces and they told me that. And then I took artwork up there and I showed them the artwork, and they came unglued when they saw the artwork. They could not believe the artwork. One doctor looked at me and said, "Do you understand the magnitude of what you've accomplished here? It's nothing short of a miracle. You are facing this disease and beating it head on by what you're doing, by these beautiful drawings and these intricate drawings that you're doing. The fact that you can do this after having Parkinson's for 16 years is a miracle." So, and of course I tell them, they said you have a great attitude. You know, and attitude is everything. Attitude is everything. Like we said before, you never ever give up ever. I can see why people would fold over and blow away. I can see it's a horrible disease. Nobody wants to go through this. It's terrible. But I never give up. I never give up, and I stay positive. And I find something. If I'm in, now I'm human. I fall in the gutter once in a while. I fall down, not literally, but I fall down and get depressed, whatever. But I get out of it. I get out of it by being of service to someone. Being of service to someone. I had a meeting the other night, and the first guy that shared after I told my story, he was in tears, and he shared about how his father had just passed away from Parkinson's disease a week ago. And I offered him so much hope and inspiration and made him feel so good. He wanted to talk to me, and so we stayed after the meeting and talked. And just to be able to do that for him, I mean, I wouldn't take all the money in the world for how I felt after that. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed in so many ways I can't tell you.
You are.
So many ways I can't tell you. I'm sure I've told you the story about working at Warner Brothers and the child in the wheelchair.
Yes.
Father come into the studio.
Please tell that again.
Yeah, I was in Warner Brothers Animation was out at a mall out in the San Fernando Valley. They occupied one of the big high-rises at this mall. And so at the mall, that's when I had to put some nudes in there to prove that I could still draw some nudes like I could in art school. So that's kind of an homage to Chinook Art School, that one. Anyway, this kid and his father are in the mall, and this kid's in a heavy-duty wheelchair. It's a battery-operated wheelchair. It's apparent this child is never going to get out of this wheelchair unless there's a miracle. And the kid was about 7 or 8 years old, and the father's devotion to the child was just wonderful. And so I watched them go into the mall, and then I went back into my office. I'm working. About an hour later, this kid in the wheelchair comes rolling into my office with his father. Apparently, he had been to Warner Brothers to visit somebody, and somebody told him, "Hey, why don't you go see him?" So, because they used to send a lot of teachers with schools would come on tour to the studio or something. They sent him in to see me because I was an old timer that went back to the old days at H&B or something. Anyway, this kid comes in with his dad, and I find out his whole life is Justice League of America. It's his whole life. And so I just happened to be the director on Justice League of America cartoon show at that very moment. So I show them how we do them, and show them storyboards, and show them character design. We watch them film, and when you work on those shows, they give you a box of maquettes, and maquettes are like statues of all the characters, about 18 inches high, three-dimensional statues. So you can draw the characters from every different angle. You can look at an up shot, a down shot, a back view, whatever. You can see how to draw them from every angle. So I had 2 boxes, complete sets of all these maquettes in my office. Now they give them to me so I could take them home. So I kept saying to myself, you've got to get these boxes of maquettes out of here. There's too much stuff in there. You've got to get them out. You've got to get them out. Well, it became apparent to me why I had not gotten them out yet. So I did this child one of the boxes of the maquettes. There's like 12 of them or 13 characters of whatever. And so they stick around for a while and we talk and visit and so on. And then they left. About 2 months later, I run into the child's father in some restaurant in Studio City or Temecula, I guess it was. And we talked for a little bit. And I asked him how his son was doing. And he says to me, when he drove home with his son that day, his son said to him it was the greatest day of his life.
Awesome.
How do you get to be a part of someone's greatest day of their life? Paid in full forever. Paid in full forever. And I think of that what I could have done had I been in the cups of my disease. I could have destroyed that child. I could have destroyed that show. I could have been an embarrassment to Warner Brothers, myself, and everybody else. But thank God I wasn't. Thank God I was clean and sober. So when this child came in. An interesting thing that you just passed a while back, there was a tree there. Do you remember that tree?
Yep.
That tree is a tree that's up on the top of the hill behind Warner Brothers. You can see it from almost every vantage point in the San Fernando Valley. It's the only tree up there. It's called the Tree of Wisdom. And it's been there forever. It's been through fires, torrential rains, earthquakes, everything. It's my inspiration, the Tree of Wisdom. And I've done about 300 watercolors of that tree.
I'm showing it now.
And that's about the only one that actually looks like the tree. All the ones I've done since then don't look a doggone thing like the tree. But I call them the Tree of Wisdom, and I do new ones of it all the time. I've got about 300 or 400 of them.
Is it on the back lot of Warner Brothers? Where is it in the premises of Warner Brothers Studios?
It's not on the Warner property. It's closer to Universal, actually, but it looks like it's behind Warner Brothers. There's a main thoroughfare that runs between the hill and Warner Brothers, so it's not on the Warner property.
Cool.
It's on the tree. Well, it's on the mountain behind it. The Tree of Wisdom. You can hike up to it. There's a little plaque up there and everything. I've never been up there either. I've wanted to go with several guys, but we've never gone.
Wow. Well, you made a difference in that young man's life, that's for sure. And you make a difference to a lot of people. And, I know, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, a great Mad Magazine artist I saw on your social media, Sergio Aragonés?
Yeah. What a wonderful man.
Yes, one of my favorites. He did a nice portrait and sent it to you. By the way, for a little bit of comic relief here, when you were in the Robert Blake trial, did you look at any of the courtroom sketches from the courtroom artist, or no? Did you happen to see any of that in media or there on the spot? And were you like,
No.
oh, this artist sucks, I could do better than that? I'm kidding. You're not that kind of guy. You're a humble guy. You're a nice guy. I'm just kidding.
I know, but all I saw was the one or two that were done. I saw mine that evening on the news, and I saw another one that was done that evening. But I never saw any other ones, and I just said I got to get that because I got to have them. I mean, this doesn't happen every day. So I called the woman, and she said, "Yeah, come on up there and get it." Man, she was up in the hills between the valley and Hollywood. She was up in the hills up there, and she was way down somewhere there. It took me forever to find her place. So about an hour driving through those hills. Like, I'll never forget it. Anyway, that's just a little aside.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Let's see. We got to talk.
Let me finish up with one thing.
Okay, please do. Please.
So they really came unglued when they saw the doctors at Stanford came unglued when they saw the artwork. They actually couldn't believe it. And then when they found out I'd done it left-handed, they really went berserk. So they were so grateful. They said, we've never met anybody like you. We've never met anybody that's had this kind of attitude, that does this kind of artwork, that this, that, and the other thing. And so the operation is a two-part operation. It'll operate on me on August 13th. Then the second part will be August 20th. Now, in one of those operations, you're awake during the operation because, like I said, there's no nervous system in the brain, so there's no feeling in your brain. So when I'm awake, they're going to film the whole operation because they want to use it for something in their portfolio. I'm not sure what yet.
Wow.
But they want me to be drawing while I'm awake.
That's the incredible thing. You'll be drawing during this procedure.
Yeah, exactly. This is what every artist loves to hear. Is the pressure on or what? I'll probably not be able to do anything but a stick figure. But no, I'm happy to do whatever they want me to do. They're going to film it. They're going to try. I think they're going to use some of my artwork for other things. And then there's another guy who I'm having a conference call with tomorrow, who's a documentary filmmaker who wants to do a documentary about me in the worst way. He's seen the artwork. He's a friend of mine who's a drummer, professional drummer, and I met him at his house. He's his next door neighbor, and he just came unglued and he came over and saw our paintings and stuff. And he goes, "Man, I want to tell your story. You got to tell this story." So that's something else in the works that may or may not happen.
Would you please come back on the Nostalgic Podblast after this procedure once you've recovered?
Absolutely.
And we'll have to make that a Zoom call.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I can see you putting the pictures up.
Yeah, I'm showing some of
those
your nudes.
Those drawings aren't bad. Gee, Christmas.
I'm having a little issue with the stand. Okay, there. I think hopefully we'll get it to go. And it'll stay. It's probably going to fall over with my luck.
Don't worry, I've fallen over many times, and so have my brother.
You're quick. You are quick. There we go. It seems to be. It's an attention grabber for those watching. I'm showing some nudes so people will tune in. People are, and they already are. There's like 40 people watching, 40 something right now. Because it's times 10.
Questions from the audience?
What's that?
Any more questions from the audience?
Yeah. Well, I'm still going to ask some questions of my own, and then I'll turn to the audience if that's okay.
I got all the time in the world.
Yep. Well, we did have a comment from Becky Smith. She says this is very inspirational. Thank you, Becky Smith.
Thank you.
Now, yeah, like I said, we have a lot of people in the audience who have mental and or physical challenges. So this is really an incredible story, and I'm grateful that you share it with me because you're about to explode on media. This is going to be huge for you, and more importantly for those that are struggling with Parkinson's disease. They want to know that there's hope, and this is just going to be really something that a lot of people benefit from. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. You overcame that. You learned to draw with your left hand. I know you're familiar with the book Drawing. Is it Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I've never read it.
Okay. All right. I was going to ask if there's a tie-in there. So you answered that question. Now, would you please describe your exclusive club, the Cliffhangers, that you're in?
Oh, in fact, I was just there yesterday.
That's great because I know we talked about it, but because of COVID, California was pretty much locked down. But now I wanted to ask if you've reunited. I'll just set this up real quick. The Cliffhangers, these are all gentlemen of all types of backgrounds. A lot of them are professionals in the industry like you, and some are not. But what you do all love is film, and you get together with your leader, and he picks the movie out, and every couple of weeks in a non-COVID world, you'd watch a movie that Woody, the leader of your group, selects, and your group is called the Cliffhangers. And there was a documentary movie that was made about you. It's called The Brotherhood of the Popcorn, which is available. Now, have you, and you just sort of answered this, you've obviously reunited after the COVID-19 restrictions were finally lifted in your state of California, and you're a native Californian, by the way.
Right.
And that's pretty rare these days out there. Do you guys ever have, all right, well, I'll just shut up and please let me know, what is it like to be a member of the Cliffhangers?
Well, you pretty much said everything all encapsulated.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to go lie down and put a cold towel on my forehead.
Oh, man.
The Cliffhangers no, I'm kidding. The Cliffhangers is a group of guys that founded by as we like to call him. And it was founded probably about, I think it's close to about 40 years ago. And we get together we used to get together every 2 weeks. Now I think we're going to do it about once a month.
Okay.
Because everybody's slowing down a little bit. But it's a group of guys that loves movies. That's the one thing we all have in common is we all love movies. Any kind of movies, especially old movies. But we love all movies. And it's an eclectic group. Right now there's 1, 2, 3 people from animation. There's a retired school teacher. There's Woody, who's a retired video guy, a film projectionist from movies at theaters and stuff. There's a painter we just lost, Rocky, who just passed away. Eric,
I'm sorry.
Eric was a newspaperman. Eric was in the submarine corps in World War II, which I give him all the credit and respect in the world for doing that. My God. There's Jack, the rich fish truck salesman, the truck deliverer guy that inherited a lot of money from his parents, so he's a rich truck driver now. Whose whole life is DVDs. He buys nothing but DVDs a week, gets for them every week. Anyway, we get together. Our usual day is kind of like we get together at Woody's. We just did it yesterday. Yesterday was our second meeting since the COVID thing started, how we pronounce that. We had a meeting about 4 weeks ago. We were going to get together sooner, but then this kind of scare came up again and whatever. So we met yesterday. Anyway, we used to get to Woody's. A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, has now become a new member of Cliffhanger. Since we lost Rocky, we wanted a new member, and Woody liked this friend of mine I brought the last time. So he's a new member. His name's Rick. Anyway,
Rick.
We started with Rick. Rick Thompson is his name, and he's a music promoter guy that did concerts and all kinds of stuff like that. Anyway, we stopped and got donuts, apple fritters at this one donut shop that everybody loves the apple fritters from. It took him to Woody's, and we thought, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess it was 10 of us there yesterday. And of course, we get there between 8 o'clock and 9:15. Everybody gets there, and we have donuts and bagels and coffee and sweet rolls and everything that we can't eat when the wives are back. And Sandy, of course, Woody's wife is there to keep an eye on us. We don't talk any religion or any politics.
That's
and
wise.
We have to watch. We have to be on our best behavior with our talking.
Don't talk about Robert Blake.
We can talk about that, but we have to be careful. We don't use any four-letter words.
Right.
We watch our profanity. None of these guys swear much anyway. But so we visit for about. If you get there at 8, we visit till about 9:30, and then we gets the popcorn made upstairs, and he's got the films ready to go. And we go upstairs, and he'll talk a little bit about what we're going to see, whatever, or he'll just he won't tell us what he's going to run most of the time. We have to go with it. So yesterday, the first movie was, I think it was The Falcon. The Falcon Returns or something. It was George Sanders as the Falcon. And
yes, who committed suicide, George Sanders, and he was the original Mr. Freeze in season 1 of Batman, Adam West Batman in 1966.
I remember the suicide note. I'm bored.
Oh Lord, I want to hear about this. This is sad.
I'm bored. That's all he wrote. I'm bored.
On board. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, he was bored.
Exclusive.
Yeah. So
Wow.
anyway, we watched The Falcon. That was the first movie, and then we watched one chapter of a new movie. It was a new serial. It was called. It was a very early one. I don't remember the name. It's something like Flying Devil Dogs or something like that. But the only reason we watched it is we got a brand new print, or a brand new DVD of the whole serial, and he said it's the most gorgeous print. They just found the print or cleaned it up or done something, and it was just beautiful. It was gorgeous.
On
Really
film?
beautiful.
Or was it DVD? They found. I got you. They remastered it. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
And George. I just want to interject. George Sanders was born July 3rd, 1906, in St. Petersburg, not Florida, but Russia, and he died April 25th, 1972, in Spain. He was 6 foot 3 inches tall. Yes, and let's see.
Actor.
Yeah. How did you like the movie? Had you ever seen that? The Falcon and the.
I probably had. I've seen a lot of them, but I didn't remember. I enjoyed it. And then the second movie we watched was Charlie Chan in Panama, Sidney Toiler. And it's funny because one of my dear friends and one of my animation friends can't stand the old Charlie Chan movies, and Woody loves them. So Woody tends to put them on a lot. So and we don't say anything to Woody because that's the what it is about Woody's movies. So but when he says Charlie Chan, I always look over at my friend and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh no," and then I start laughing and of course we watch him because Woody loves him, so we love Woody. So we would do him.
So there's no friction then with Woody picking the movies every time? No friction?
No, never any friction.
That's good.
But what he'll do once in a while he'll like one time he said, pick your 10 favorite movies and write them down. So we all wrote them down. We all wrote down 10 favorite movies. And then I think Woody took all that list, and over the next several months, we went through each one's thing, and Woody would pick his 2 favorite out of your 10 movies. And then he would run those 2 movies that day. And then they'd maybe do me the first time, then maybe my friend who I just run in the next time, and then Eric the next time, and then Billy. He'd go through all the 10 guys, 10, 12 guys, however many there were, and he would pick 2 movies out of the 10 that the guy liked. There was stuff like Thief of Baghdad, King Kong, the original, My Darling Clementine.
You mean you'd watch the one from 1976? I'm kidding. With Jessica Lange, introducing Jessica Lange.
Oh, I've got a funny story about that, though, but I'm glad you brought that up. I got a funny story about that. That was a horrible movie. But anyway, I had a very dear friend who was a makeup man. And this guy, he was just an old Hollywood queen. He was more fun to be around than a bag of monkeys. He was just a kick. So he used to live in the Hollywood Hills, and I at the time moved down to Redondo Beach, and I used to drive up to Hanna-Barbera from Redondo Beach. And anyway, he lived down the street from a friend of mine in animation, and I came over to my friend's house one day, and this is right after they had passed Proposition 13, the property tax law in California many years ago, in 76, I think it was, or 74, 75, something like that.
Right.
And so I was half in the bag, and we went down to the victory party down at the hotel in L.A., and this guy, John Truey, who was the makeup guy, and my friend Don, and Don had made these signs, so I give me those signs, and I get right up on stage behind out Mr. Jarvis, who was the author of Prop 13, and I'm waving the signs, and here I am on the front page of the LA Times the next morning and all this. Anyway, now let's get to the point at hand here. So this guy thinks I'm the greatest thing since sliced Wonder Bread, right? So I got to be good friends with him, and I would kid him and joke with him, and he would joke with me and kid me. We had a real love. We loved each other. We're just good friends. Nothing physical, just a good friend. Great guy. So he used to go down to. He was retired from MGM. He worked in the theater part of Lowe's International back in the 30s, back in Minnesota, someplace. And he won a contest. I don't know exactly what happened, but the contest was you were given a train ride out to MGM in California, in Culver City, and you spent a week at MGM. And this was the prize that you won. And an all-expense-paid trip to MGM in the mid-30s. So he comes out here, right, and he's been taking a tour of MGM with these people, and he just comes unglued. To him, this is greater. This is the greatest thing since sliced wheat bread. I mean, I've got to get into this somehow.
With honey in it.
Yeah, exactly. So they're in the Thalberg building, which is the main building, and they're heading towards the exit as the tour is over. And he turns to the right, goes down this hallway. No one sees him. He goes down this hallway, and he winds up behind the back of the commissary that somebody's wife runs the commissary. And his wife just happens to be in the back of the commissary, and she needs a busboy. And this guy walks up, and she hires him as a busboy on the spot. So now he's got a job at MGM. He's a busboy, and he meets Norma Shear. Now, Norma Shear at that time is married to Irving Thalberg, and Norma Shear is the queen of MGM. She's the queen of the lot in those days. So he would deliver trays to Norma Shear's room, dressing room, lunch trays. So she befriended him, and she said to him, "John, now you don't want to be a busboy, are you? What do you like to do? What do you want to do?" And he says, well, I'd like to get into the makeup department. Well, she says, well, I'll get you in the makeup department. I can do that. And you go from there, but I'll get you in. So she gets him in the makeup department, and he works at the makeup department from like 1935 to 1972 or 72. I mean, he's done everybody. Spencer Tracy, Lionel Barrymore, John Barrymore. I mean, everybody. Marx Brothers, everybody, right?
He knew all the secrets. He probably learned a lot. Like a hairdresser or a makeup man is better than a therapist.
Those were all the bodies of theirs.
Ah!
They're all of them. So he's down there working on it. So he retires in like 70, 72, something like that. So he's retired, and he gets a phone call one day, and they're doing the De Laurentiis King Kong, right? And they're having trouble with the fur on the ape suit. It was like rabbit fur or something, and they're having trouble getting it on this guy's arm or something. I don't know what. So they say, well, call John Truey. Get John Truey down, and he can fix this. So they call John Truey. He comes down, and they hire him as a makeup man to do the rest of the picture and help with the fur and all this stuff. And so one day they say to him, John, Miss Lang's makeup person is not going to be there tomorrow. Will you go over tonight? We'll take you over and introduce you to her and break the ice, so to speak. And then you come in early in the morning. She's got an early call. You come in early in the morning and do her makeup. And John says, fine.
Let me think about that. Yes, I will do that. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So he finishes working that day, and they say, okay, John, we're going to take you over and introduce you to Miss Lang, so let's go. So they go to her dressing room, knock on the door, and she says, come in. They come in, and she's looking at a script or a magazine or something, and they say, now, Miss Lang, this is John Truey. He's going to be doing your makeup. And she looks up at John and says, oh, shit, he does the animals. Well, he'd been doing the gorilla, right, putting the fur on his head. And he looks at her, and he says, and I've done every fucking horse's ass since you were born. He says, fuck you. And he walks out of her thing, walks off the thing.
That's bold. That's bold.
He said, that's it, I've had it. And we go back. But what was fun about John, I love this about John, he would call me up. I'd be at home in Redondo Beach, and he'd call me up and say, Tim, I'm going to go to the MGM tomorrow. Because there were still a couple of nurses that were still there from the old days, a few of the old policemen and guards, and, a few of the old-timers were still there, right?
Right.
So he would go down and have lunch, and we'd have lunch at the commissary, and then we'd walk around and we'd visit with old people and stuff, and we'd spend the day at MGM. He used to call me all the time, and I did it every time he called, because I knew this studio is going to go down one day. This is not going to be here, and you will never have this chance again. So you walk on this lot that was probably the greatest movie lot in the history of film. And it was all Art Deco and design, the buildings and everything. And I had a blast. I had so much fun doing that. And, I'd buy a jacket or a T-shirt, whatever, and buy him lunch. And I'd kid with him, he'd kid with me. It was just a great time. And sadly, he passed away from a heart attack.
Damn.
2 years after that. But it was a great relationship. I loved him dearly.
How old was he when he passed? Do you know?
He was probably, I'm going to say he was in his late 70s, probably maybe early 80s.
A lot of people are dying these days, man. It's so depressing.
I know. Tell me about it. I'm losing
No one gets out of here alive, right? On this earth.
Huh?
Yeah. I said no one gets out of here alive, that's for sure.
No one gets out alive. No one. But that was funny, that King Kong, Jessica Lange. I'll never forget that story. That was historical.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
This is what kills me. He was a pack rat. He took everything that wasn't nailed down. His house in the Hollywood Hills was a beautiful atomic age 60s style house. It was filled with memorabilia from MGM. And he had blueprints of every lot. There were 7 lots at MGM, and he had blueprints of every one of them that told you exactly what every building was. And I begged him to let me make a copy of them, just at a blueprint place, just one copy.
Did he let you?
No, he would never let me do it. He kept saying, "Oh, they'll make copies."
What happened?
John, they're not in business to do that. They're in business to make copies for people that need copies. They're not interested in doing selling that stuff. But when he wanted when I had something he wanted, boy, I gave it to him all the time. Going on, because one of these days he's going to come through, and he never did. But then again, I realized, you know what? all those are just copies of things you can find somewhere else someday. You know, this friendship is more important than that.
Right on, man. What happened to his memorabilia? Do you know?
You know, he was going to give it to everybody, and then he went out to the motion picture home on a tour and thought it was the most wonderful place in the world. They donated everything to them. They came, got the house, got everything out of the house, threw everything away. They took it all.
Was it for a museum or what? What do you mean they took it all?
No, they took it all, and the main guy who's
Auctioned it?
maybe kept a lot of it for himself, maybe sold it. Who knows what he did?
Yeah,
I don't know
right.
what to do at that point.
Yeah,
I
I hear
have
you,
no
man.
idea what to do at that point.
So getting back to the Brotherhood of the Popcorn, that was a documentary made about your group. How many members are there in your exclusive group? Because I know there's only so many seats in Woody's home.
Okay, let's see.
14, 12, I can't. 9.
Woody,
Yeah.
me, Bill Exter, Tucker, Richard, Rick, Jack. Dennis was another 8. I would say on any given day there's somewhere between 8 and 10 guys.
And there's a waiting list to get in, and sadly, when someone passes away, someone gets inducted.
Well, we might get another one because Eric no longer can make it because his legs are shot. He can't get up the stairs, and that really breaks my heart because there isn't a dearer, sweeter man than Eric.
And Rocky was a house painter who passed away, right?
He was a house painter that passed away,
Yeah.
and we miss him terribly. And I'll tell you, 2 people that we aren't going to see anymore are the 2 helpers that came. Well, one came with Rocky, and one came with Eric. Rocky had a young Korean gentleman named Eugene, nurse's aide type, wonderful guy, wonderful guy. And Eric had Susan. And Susan
So that was my next question. Is it a boys' club, or are there women allowed in the club? And you just answered that.
They would come and help them. They would get them upstairs and get them into their seats. If they needed to use the restroom or whatever, they'd come and help them. Once they got in there, Susan and Eugene would stay in the other room where Woody had the popcorn machine. You know, they would read books or watch TV or whatever.
I hope that's what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what they were doing.
And so the first movie you saw was The Gay Falcon, starring George Sanders, and that's 1 hour, 7 minutes long, released in 1941.
Right.
So obviously you did a double feature and not a triple feature like you talked about, because that's a very short film.
Yeah, and then we did the Charlie Chan in Panama, Sidney Dolan.
Very cool.
And now we're going to meet again. Woody thought we might be able to meet again before I have my operation, but because it looks like the COVID thing is kind of rearing up again, masks are now, you have to wear masks in California again. So they might not do it before I have the operation, and we might get together a couple weeks afterwards, or whenever I can afterwards, depending on what happens.
Are you nervous? Are you nervous, or are you happy, and are you excited? What are you feeling about it?
Let me put it this way. I have never really had a major operation in my life. I had a broken wrist when I fell at Woody's one time.
No tonsils? No tonsils or appendicitis?
Well, I had
removal?
tonsils
Appendix?
when I was a little kid, but that was so long ago.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
I've never had a major operation. Am I scared? Hell yes, I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't believe that a power greater than self would bring me this far
Yes.
to do the work I'm doing, to be there for people that need me, that need the inspiration. So I put my faith in him, and I put my faith in these wonderful people at Stanford who were so wonderful to me when I was up there.
Wow.
I mean, these doctors are 2 of the preeminent doctors in the world for this disease.
Wow.
So, whatever happens, happens. And whatever happens is what's meant to happen. And if this is my stay, and this is what I was meant to do, and it's going to end here, so be it. If it's not, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep telling you that you can survive this disease. If it's going to take me down, it's going to take me down kicking and screaming, and you'll be able to survive it, and I'm going to show you how to survive it by attitude.
That's quite a legacy. And we have a listener, Eric, who is wheelchair bound, but you know what? He doesn't give up. He's a black belt. He's a martial artist. and he trains with weapons, and he's awesome. And I've met him through BK on the Air. He's a listener of that radio show that I'm now a part of. Saturdays, 10 a.m. to noon on WBHF, AM, FM, Cartersville. Tune in, YouTube. And anyway, he's a listener, and now he listens to my show, and I bet he's listening right now.
Well, God bless you, Eric. If you're listening and you can hear me, I'm with you, buddy. If you're doing that and you're in a wheelchair, God bless you, my friend.
Amen. Thank God he has use of his arms. You know, like unlike Christopher Reeve, who was a quadriplegic, and there's probably people out there listening that are that need inspiration that are quads.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they're an inspiration what they're doing. I mean, there are people that have got far worse off than I've got it, and they're still good. They're getting up every day. They're doing their thing. They're doing what they need to do. They're being responsible, doing what has to be done.
Not assuming the temptation, right? In bad choices.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep.
And it's so easy. It's so easy to just say, "Oh, forget this. I can't do it anymore." Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Whether it's mental or physical, it doesn't matter. You never, ever, ever, ever give up. Ever, ever.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the tagline of today's show: "Never give up." Of this interview with you, and it reminds me of a movie, Galaxy Quest. That was the message, and I'm going to play a little clip of that after we conclude this interview. I have some other quick questions. Can you keep going, or do you got to go do something?
Yeah, what time is it anyway?
Well, it's 5:51 in Atlanta, Georgia, so that's 1 o'clock, 1 to 2. That's 2:51 your time.
2:51 my time?
Yep.
Oh, that's fine. I'm good. I'm good. Keep
Good.
Going. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep this thing rolling.
Rock on, man. So, Brotherhood of the Popcorn is a documentary that was made about you guys a few years ago. Do you know where people can find that, or is that a question for Woody?
I think it's on Amazon. I think it's on YouTube.
Yep.
You can get it on Amazon.
Right.
I think Ricky said that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a professionally done movie, and it's great.
India. Her name is.
Huh?
Her name is Linda Reed, but her youngest sister couldn't say Linda, so she said Inda when she was a baby. So she kept it, so she goes by Inda Reed. She's a wonderful filmmaker, and she did a great job. And this was before I got on the new medication, and man, I'm starting to be crippled up and walking stiff, and I was on the wrong trail when they made this one. But I got on the new medication after a certain point, and it pulled me right out of the fire.
Awesome. Now, this is primarily a nostalgia show, so I must ask, what are you nostalgic for, James Tim Walker? Animated or not, or both? What are you nostalgic for? Cars? Classic cars? I'll shut up.
Well, I loved cars. I never was a big car fan. I mean, a car always got me from here to there. But I always loved the old cars. My parents, when I was growing up, they always had Lincolns and T-Birds and stuff like that. I came from a upper middle-class family. I had a 51 bullet-nosed Studebaker businessman's coupe that I loved. I used to park in front of the house. I'd get speeding tickets while it was parked in front of the house because it looked like it was speeding. It was a two-door slant back. It looked like it was right out of Flash Gordon. I loved it.
Awesome.
What else? Let me see. Hold on a second. I got to take a couple of pills.
Okay.
I'm taking them right now. So.
All right. Well, I'll take over while you do that. While you swallow.
30 seconds.
I want to talk about a movie called Xanadu, which was a pretty bad Olivia Newton-John movie. However, it had a cool animated sequence by Don Bluth to the song by ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra, and the song is "Don't Walk Away." Did you ever meet Don Bluth or work with him?
No, I never did. I met him one time when he was working at Disney's before he left. I never worked with him. I knew his brother, Toby Bluth, very well, who was a great artist, who I always wanted to work with, and sadly he passed away. He always had great ideas, and he tried to sell these great shows. He never could get them done. He was a great guy, but I never worked with him.
All right. What's your favorite? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you.
Never saw Xanadu, so I never saw the animal sequence.
It's a cool sequence. I have it on 16 millimeter reel-to-reel film.
Okay, I'll have to see it.
That sequence is cool. It's probably on YouTube. That's a Universal picture, and Universal's pretty tight with their clips, so I don't know if it's out there or not for free.
Okay, what I understand that, excuse me, genre. It's not.
What's your favorite film genre? Yeah.
My favorite film genre is, I love comedy. I love film noir. I love universal horror. I love westerns. My favorite comedian of all time is W.C. Fields. I believe he was the greatest single comedian of all time.
How about Jackie Mason, who just passed away, sadly?
I didn't hear Jackie Mason died. When did he die? Just recently?
Yesterday.
Oh, shit.
In his 90s. He had a nice long life, and his work is immortal, just like yours. Your work is immortal. After you're off this earth, your artwork will remain for all time. Unless the sun goes supernova and destroys the earth and the rest of the planets in our friggin' solar system, the Milky Way. But you're immortal, my friend.
Well, let me finish up about nostalgia.
Okay.
Because I love Jackie Mason. He was hysterical. I mean, he would just say a line of dialogue and you'd start laughing. It'd be so funny. But I love W.C. Fields. I had a friend of mine who I used to run around with back in my imbibing days was Gene Fowler's son, Will Fowler. Gene Fowler, he wrote Goodnight, Sweet Prince, the biography of John Barrymore, and he wrote several other books. He was a scriptwriter he was the head scriptwriter at 20th Century Fox in the 30s. He was the highest paid scriptwriter in Hollywood. He was paid $1,000 a day, and he insisted that Daryl Zanuck pay him in cash at the end of every day because he insisted that he was he counted himself a day laborer, is what he called himself. And what he would do is most of the time a script would come in and the ending wouldn't make sense or something wouldn't make sense. He was like a script doctor. He would take the script and make sense out of it and, tie it up with an ending that worked, whatever.
Analyze it and fix it up.
Yeah, fix it up, exactly. Anyway, he was huge friends with John Barrymore and W.C. Fields. And my friend Will Fowler, Gene Fowler was so powerful in Hollywood back in the mid-30s that he could get his son Will a driver's license at age 14 because he had so much power with the police department. So his dad would drink with W.C. Fields and Barrymore at their houses behind the scenes. So he would see these guys in their cups behind the scenes when they would just do outrageous, uproarious, funny stuff. But anyway, I met Will because I was a big W.C. Fields fan. And through Will, I've got a bunch of original letters that Fields wrote to his father that are just filthy because it's like one drunk writing to another drunk. It's not like a fan letter or something. And I got tons of pages of original vaudeville stage skits handwritten by W.C. Fields. And John Barrymore, several original drawings that John Barrymore drew that were in his book, Goodnight, Sweet Prince, and inside the front and back covers. So I have a big collection. I have a flask, a silver flask, that was given to John Barrymore from W.C. Fields. So I love that stuff. I love the 30s and 40s.
As long as it's empty. As long as it's empty, right?
Oh yeah. It's empty. All right. I never fill it up. But I love the 30s and 40s. I love the films from back then. I love King Kong. It's one of my favorite films, the original.
Fay Ray, right on.
Oh yeah, she was gorgeous in that film. She should have been given an honorary Oscar for that film and for nothing else.
Revolutionary too, the stop motion animation.
Oh, absolutely. When you stop and think of what they did in 1933 to make that unbelievable. A great film. I love Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein. I really love it.
You're talking about John Barrymore. I love people like that can direct and act. They're multi-talented. Like Martin Landau was a cartoonist before he was an actor.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of guys.
Met him on set. Great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Roger Moore.
Yeah.
The cartoonist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Gary Cooper was an artist.
God, who's that guy too? Oh man, it'll come to me. Well, I want to say something about Jackie Mason. He was 93 years old. He had inflammation of the lungs, no signs it was COVID-19, and he was a rabbi before he was a stand-up comic. So he turned the corner.
No, I love anything. I love old Hollywood. I love anything old from MGM.
Right.
I have several old things from MGM that I love. I love old animation, cartoons and stuff. Mm-hmm. I've got some old movie posters that I love, some cartoon posters.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a 1938 Christmas Carol Carroll MGM 3-sheet, I think. It's I can't remember who played. It was what's his name? Not Lionel Barrymore. It was. Gosh, I can't think of it. But it's a beautiful 3-sheet. I've got a Buddy and Cookie 1-sheet from 1933 Warner Brothers. Those are two miscellaneous Warner cartoon characters that never really made it, but the 1-sheet is a gorgeous Art Deco 1-sheet.
Art Deco, and it's a 1-sheet for those that don't know. It's a movie. It's basically a movie poster, correct?
Right, exactly.
And so, what's a 3-sheet? It's just it's like 3 times the size. What is that?
3 times the size. If you turned them sideways and had 3 of them in a row, it'd be something like that. It's pretty big, and a 6-sheet is like a wall. But I love that stuff. I love the toys, of course, that I grew up in the 50s. All the cap guns and Banner 50s and the Mattel toys. And
Love that smell, the caps, the real caps, the paper caps.
Yeah, the paper caps. I love those.
Yeah.
I grew up with that stuff. But that's what's nostalgic to me. I love the pencil drawings I have from early Hanna-Barbera, like complete storyboards, like the Flintstones. The very first episode was the Flintstone Flyer, the helicopter. You remember that one? And I have the original storyboard, the original drawings that the guy drew for the original first Flintstones. That's got to be pretty penny, I think. But I love that stuff, and I have some boards that Joe Barbera drew. His rough thumbnails before it went to a regular board cut. That's all historical, nostalgic kind of stuff.
You're nostalgic for a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, a whole lot of stuff.
Like me. You're not a hoarder. You're probably a bit of a pack rat like I am. And like your friend.
I am, and my wife wants me to start getting rid of stuff.
Oh.
But I can't afford to collect it anymore anyway. It's so expensive now, and everything in auction. Well, it's no fun anymore. It's too. You can't find anything anymore.
Right. Everything's getting sky high. I collect comic books, and every time there's a new Marvel series streaming on Disney Plus, my collection goes up in value. There's always characters being introduced in the Marvel universe. It's such a cash crop, like the Black Widow movie. It really brought back the big box office buck. Now I'm glad it did well at the box office.
Now, I want to ask you something. I found a DC limited collector's edition for $1. It's a DC comic called Super Friends. 2 full-length novels, special how a TV cartoon is created by Alex Toth, extra Super Friends pinup, and it's an oversized comic. It cost $1. And it's got the Super Friends on the cover, and a dog and a kid and a girl that are from a Hanna-Barbera show, I guess. Let me see what the date is. It says, Limited Collector's Edition, Volume 4, number C41, December 1975-76.
Neato.
Published by Monthly.
I could look at your IMDb, but while you're here live with me,
Yes.
did you ever draw the Super Friends? The show, the cartoon show.
On the show at Hanna-Barbera?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What?
I do on a ton of them.
What?
It's on a ton of them, yeah. Super Friends, yeah.
The Wonder Twins activate? That's you?
Wonder Twin Powers activate.
Oh, my Lord. That's another aspect to your illustrious, pun intended, career. I loved watching the Super Friends, man. That's badass.
Oh, gee.
I'm serious.
I'll tell you a funny story about the Super Friends. When they were doing Super Friends, there was this one producer was working on it, and nobody really wanted to do the Super Friends. They didn't like the show, whatever. This one guy was working on it, and he was sliding towards the front door as fast as possible. They were ready to get rid of him. And NBC came in and wanted Hanna-Barbera to do a test on the Smurfs. They were interested in doing the Smurfs.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Oh, yeah, the Smurfs. That was out of Europe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're out of Belgium.
Belgium, yes. I always thought it was Germany, and I learned the other day when I was researching. Yeah, I'll shut up now.
PYO, yeah. And so an NBC exec's daughter had all these statues of the Smurfs in her bedroom, is the story I heard. And he took them to NBC, and everybody got real excited about it. So they made a deal with Peyo, and they came to all the animation studios in L.A. There were 3 or 4 at the time. They gave everyone a test to do the Smurfs. Well, Hanna-Barbera won the job. Okay, so they got all these producers doing all these other shows, and nobody wanted the Smurfs. Nobody wanted to do them at all. So there's this guy working on Super Friends. He's getting ready to be thrown off the lot, right? Being canned. So the Smurfs falls in his lap. They go, well, let's give it to him, and we're going to get rid of him anyway. It falls in his lap, and what happens? It goes right through the roof of the buildings.
It does. They had those little figures. My sister loved them. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
but
Big
the guy
merchandise
on top,
thing. Yeah.
It's so popular, it's crazy.
It
And
took
this guy-
off. Yeah.
This guy goes from bottom of the barrel to right at the top, and he makes a fortune doing it. And it was just funny that they were about to get rid of this guy, and boom, he gets handed the Smurfs, and he's right back on top.
Don't you hate the suits? Don't you hate the suits and management that make these decisions? Thank goodness they went for it, right? It was successful.
Yeah.
Very successful.
I worked on a ton of the Smurfs as an animator and as a director.
What blows my mind? I'm talking with an animator of the Super Friends and the Smurfs
Yeah.
right here on the Nostalgic Podblast.
I worked on Space Ghost. I worked on Birdman, Space Ghost, Scooby, the Harlem Globetrotters.
And the new
All the-
Flintstones. I love the new Flintstones with the teenage Bam Bam and Pebbles. I loved that.
Pebbles and Bam Bam show. I used to have the opening credits, the opening titles, the animation drawings from the opening titles. I think Irv Spence animated.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, the Pebbles and Bam Bam show. Bedrock Cops.
Wowzy Wowzy Woo Woo. Remember that character?
Who was it?
There was a character in that go Wowzy Wowzy Woo Woo. Anyway, I digress. Never mind.
I don't remember that. Do you remember a show called Where's Huddles? It was about football players.
Yeah.
Where's Huddles? I worked on that. Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. I worked on that. Got a ton of stuff in here. Tons of stuff. The Paws, the Trollkins,
Mm-hmm.
Cookie Koala that Tex Avery did. Wow, man. Oh, God. Tons of them.
The Pink Panther. You ever do the Saturday morning version of Pink Panther?
To Patty Freeling and Son. Pink Panther to Patty Freeling and Son of the Pink Panther and Hanna-Barbera.
I love that. Yes.
All that stuff.
Dude.
You know, so much stuff crosses your desk. You forget. You know, you forget.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
do you have a mentor? And if so, who and why? And whose artwork do you admire? Sergio Aragonés?
Do I have, what was the first part? Do I have a mentor?
Do you have a mentor?
No, I know you're not going to believe this. But
In the creative realm or anything. Go ahead.
You mean somebody that I look up to or that helps
Yes.
me?
Yeah. Someone that you look up to.
Oh, God, there were several. I mean, guys who are no longer here, but there were several guys.
Doesn't matter.
Bolas Jones was one of the animators that I sat next to. I would come in the morning on my cubicle. I'd look over the cubicle. He'd be sitting at his desk already. And he was a guy that used to go sailing all the time with his buddies, and they used to fly airplanes back in the 40s and 50s. So I'd come over, I'd look over the cubicle, and I'd go, "Come on aboard, Skipper, come on aboard." And he'd look up at me, "Well, come on aboard, lad, come on aboard." So I'd sit down and start working, and the end of the day would get here. And this is the guy that everybody would show up and they'd say, "You got your food, you got your sandwich?" "Yeah, I got my sandwich." Okay. They'd all go drinking martinis at lunch, and then they'd be back at 1:30 working. So at the end of the day, I'd look over.
With a buzz. No offense. Yeah.
No, I know. At the end of the day, I look over the cubicle and I go, "Going over the side, Skipper, going over the side. Over the side, lad. See you in the morning." That was so much fun, and that was great because it was a friendship with an old timer that was there when all the great stuff was being done at Disney's, and he was around all these great talents and everything. And he was just a normal guy. He was a great guy. Irv Spence and Love, I mentioned both those guys. Great animators. Andy Palawoda was a great Disney animator. Did work for. My friend Alan Wade, who was the guy that worked on Flash Gordon, who was an assistant animator, but he taught me how to do in-betweens when I first got in the business. And he was just a drunk that hung out in Toluca Lake, and I used to go looking for him all the time.
Yeah.
And have lunch with him all the time and hear the same old stories because I loved the stories and I loved him. He was a great guy. There was a lot of guys. Sergio, who I've known about him for years. I just recently got to know him. There's a group of us cartoonists and comic strip cartoonists and animation and comic books and stuff. about 10 of us or 12 of us. We get together every Friday to have a Zoom meeting for each of our houses. We used to meet at a restaurant before all this stuff happened. But we have a Zoom meeting at we start at about 12:30 and we go till about 2:30, 3 o'clock. So depending on who's there and what's talking about. But I got to meet Sergio there. And
From Mad Magazine, folks. Anyone tuning in late, we're talking about a great Mad Magazine illustrator. One of my favorites. And if I may interject, I wanted to do a pod blast about Mad Magazine, and my former partners were like, and they made a valid point. How can you make it compelling for a listener? Well, we can talk about Sergio and the other Mort Drucker and the other great artists of Mad Magazine. Now I'll be quiet. What do you have about Sergio, your buddy?
well, Sergio, I've known of him for many years. I just now have gotten to meet him, probably within the last 6 months. And he started. There were several of these people. I knew several of the people in this group, but there were several people that didn't know me, and they got to know me through people talking about me while I was there and explaining stuff and everything. And I mentioned I had a book out, and I showed it on the Zoom. And Sergio said, "Well, geez, send me one. I want one." And I sent him one, and he sent me back that really cool drawing of him holding up the book. And he has a character called Gru, I think, which is kind of like a Conan type character, a funny cartoony version of it. And so he drew Gru and his dog and me and himself on it. And he's holding my book. And he wrote on to James, "I love your book with friendship and respect."
I love that. I saw that when you posted it on your Facebook page. That was great. He did that.
That meant a lot. That meant a lot to me, what he wrote. That meant a lot.
And I felt honored. I'm like, my God, I have a book. I have James Tim Walker's book. The same book that you sent to Sergio Aragonés. I'm in great company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's a great guy. He's a wonderful guy. But Mad Magazine, I grew up to that. I mean, my favorite from Mad Magazine is Jack Davis.
Oh, gosh, yes.
John, you look at that guy's work. You cannot find, I have a book that's a reprint of all his stuff from EC Comics back in the day. And you cannot find one line of ink that's out of place or forced or wrong. Everything flows. And there's not one bad line on there anywhere. He was incredible. And Mort Drucker, Jack Davis, Mort Drucker, several other guys, they're great, great talents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've mentioned your mentors. Here's an interesting question, I think.
Yes.
Who is your favorite voiceover artist of something that you personally illustrated?
Well, I would say my favorite one, who I directed, who I worked with, I didn't draw much of her, but I would say June Foray. And June Foray, she was a consummate talent, is that the right word?
From Rocky and Bullwinkle, among other things.
She was Rocky and Natasha. And for me, I produced the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries for Warner Brothers in the mid-90s, early mid-90s, I guess it was. And she did Granny's voice. Of course, she did Granny's voice for years and years and years. She was the ultimate professional. She came from radio. She learned from those guys in the old radio. She was a genius. She brought it every time she came. We used to meet at the recording studio. We'd have lunch and all the food laid out for all the recording, all the voiceover people. We'd be there for the recording. And June was the pro, and all the rest of these people, they were fine talents, but they were just mimicking what they'd heard other people do. June brought it big time, and I loved her for that. And the other ones were all good too. They just didn't have the opportunity that she had, Had they been there and learned from the great guys that June learned from, they'd been in her quality too. But Mad Magazine, boy, I used to have tons of I had the old ones, the very first ones.
The cliche holds true. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And Before the Camera is a Mad Magazine issue with a parody of The Walking Dead. I worked on The Walking Dead early on, and I did a featured stunt. I was like a featured extra, but I got to work with a squib, and I was drawn
in the Mad Magazine parody. It's me. I'll hold it up for the camera later. I'm honored. I was drawn. In the Mad Magazine first parody of The Walking Dead. Absolutely. Pretty cool.
Did you try to get the original?
No, I did not. I didn't know how to do that. Holy smokes.
Did you
Let me hold it
approach
up for the
Mad Mag?
camera. I'll show you.
Who's the artist?
Right here. The artist is Herman Mia. Mejia.
Wow, I don't know
Herman
these people.
Mia. And here, I'll show you. There's a scene. Here, I'll hold it up for the camera. I'm shot in the head by one of the main characters named Merle Dixon from the rooftop, and it's just me in the shot. When it catches up, you'll see where I'm in the crosshairs of this character. And so all this fake blood is coming out of the back of my head. And so that moment was illustrated, and I'm short, okay? And when I auditioned for this, you had to audition to something called Zombie School, and they wanted people that were tall and thin, but they liked the guy who wound up directing many episodes, Greg Nicotero, who's the head of the FX, for special effects for Walking Dead at the time, and still is, I think. K&B Effects is his special effects company. He got his big break on Day of the Dead in the 80s. That was the first project he worked on. Oh, and so anyway, I'm going to hold it. Huh?
Is that a photo?
Yeah, that's a photo of me about to get my head blown off in The Walking Dead.
Is there any drawing of you anywhere?
Yeah, I'm going to show you the drawing of Mad Magazine for that moment. I was just setting it up.
Oh, I got you. That's from the film. I got you. Okay.
There, it's a television show on AMC. I don't know if you can see it, but you'll see a guy with a rifle shooting a zombie, and that's me, and that's from Mad Magazine.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a very minor thing, but I'm honored being a lifelong Mad Magazine fan to have been drawn in any capacity. All right, I'm holding it up for the camera. It's catching up now, I think. Gosh, I hope you can see it. But you'll see a guy holding a gun. If you know the show, oh, God, the glare, damn it. Yeah, it's right there on the left side of the screen. Anyway, there's a little bit of dialogue over me, but that's the same wardrobe I was wearing anyway. That's it.
Which one is you?
I'm the one on the far left getting shot. Far left bottom corner. There's a glare. Anyway,
There's
that's
a big flash effect over
yeah.
you?
And you see my eyeball? An eyeball? That's supposedly my
Yeah.
eyeball.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a very minor thing.
That's cool.
Well, I loved it, and I thought that was really cool when that came out. So, let's see. I'm off mic. All right, I have another question for you, sir. Moving on.
Yes, absolutely.
I really appreciate your time, by the way. I don't know if you need a break or anything. I could talk about.
I'm good.
Okay, good, because I was going to talk about the 40th anniversary of some big screen animated movies in a moment. I planned on doing that after you signed off, but we could just discuss it. And then after you sign off, I'll play a couple clips of these movies. Man, we're doing great on time. I didn't think, never mind. This is just awesome, this conversation. I love how you're so frank and honest.
That's all I know how to do, buddy.
Thank you. All right, so you said, you already told me June was your favorite voiceover artist of something you personally illustrated. Who do you think did the best voice work in cartoons, like a Mel Blanc, or is there someone more obscure, just in general, whether it was something you drew or not?
I gotta say, if it's not Mel Blanc, it's Dawes Butler.
Who?
Dawes Butler did Droopy, did MGM stuff. Bill Thompson did Droopy. That's
Hello,
right.
you happy people. That's a poor man's impression, but I can't. Yeah, it was so great. Y'all go ahead.
Right. Dawes Butler did all the early Hanna-Barbera stuff. Huck, Yogi, Quick Draw, all the early Hanna-Barbera stuff. And of course, Mel Blanc did all the Warner Brothers stuff. I would think that it would have to go to Mel Blanc,
Yeah.
but I would say Dawes Butler would be a very close second.
Very
and there's
good.
been a lot of great voices. I mean, the guy who's the guy that played Elmer Fudd, Bryant, Arthur Q. Bryant, I think was his name, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was great.
Good.
But for sheer talent, so much talent, so many different voices, and everything, has to be Mel Blanc.
Mel Blanc. And the other day, it was the anniversary of his death in 1989, sadly. Now, what inspired you? I think you've already answered this, the higher power. I'll ask it anyway. What inspired you to never give up?
Well, number one,
When you were diagnosed. Yeah.
I thank God I'm not an intellectual. Had I been an intellectual, I would have overthought this whole situation with the Parkinson's fallen into a deep depression and never come out.
Damn.
Never come out. I just looked at it like, you know what? God is going to help me, and I'm going to teach myself to draw with my left hand. I don't know what I'm going to get, but whatever I get, I was fully prepared to go all abstract if I had to. I love art. I love making art. It has been the one consistent thing in my life, and I am not going to give it up now. I am not going to let this disease defeat me.
It's not going to rob you. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it does, I'm going to go down kicking and screaming, and people are going to see that they can beat this. They can beat this, or they can live with it. They can live with it. They might not beat it, but they can live with it. And I've proven that you can live with it for 16 years. So that's what got me through it. I mean, it gets me through it one day at a time. Parkinson's doctors tell me live in the now. The program tells me one day at a time. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. All I have is right here, right now, talking with my buddy Chance. That's all I have. Tomorrow's not here yet, and yesterday is gone. All I have is right here, right now. So I'm going to enjoy living here, right now. I don't read stuff about Parkinson's disease. I don't look up stuff about Parkinson's disease. I accept that I have it, and I accept that I'm going to live today and enjoy today. If something comes down the trail and there's a breakthrough, and Chance reads about it, he's going to call me and tell me he's found something, and I got to look at it.
I will.
Then I'll look at it. But if it's not that, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to live my life today. Because like I said, right now, right here is all I've got.
One day at a time.
Enjoy it.
The program works.
The most when I'm paying.
The program works if you work it. Yes, sir.
That's right.
Oh man, one day at a time, brother. Now I gave up drawing. I was really discouraged when Marvel stole my character. Strong words, but true words. Madcap. We talked about that earlier, and I wish I hadn't given up because practice makes perfect.
But
And
it's
I
not
just
too late. It's not too late. Get a
I know.
damn sketchbook. I've told you this before. Get a sketchbook and start doodling.
and I am left-handed by birth, so for what it's worth, and I'm going to get back to it, man. Pen and ink, pencil, ink. That's my forte, or was, and I got a little discouraged because there's so many more talented artists out there than me, and it's daunting. So I just got to do my own thing. And you know what? I'm not giving up on this show either. The Nostalgic Podblast. Yeah, I don't reach billions of people, but I do this because it's something I love to do. I love to meet people that inspire me like you. I like to talk, and so I'm never going to give up. Thanks to you.
You're great at talking and hosting this show. You're great at it.
Thank you.
But
That's nice.
I feel sorry for people that they're so, they look at my art or anybody's art and they go, oh, I could never draw that. Well, yeah, I know you couldn't because I started 50, 60 years ago. But you just get a sketchbook and start doodling. And what I love about it, it's so fulfilling for your soul. No matter, you don't have to, there is no good, bad, or indifferent art. There was a comic strip many years ago called Pogo, done by Walt Kelly. The great Walt Kelly. It was done in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And Pogo Possum and all the denizens of the swamp where he lived. And this friend of mine ghosted the strip for Walt Kelly because Walt Kelly was so sick that he couldn't draw anymore. And this is a great drawing script. This friend of mine could draw like crazy. And he used to tell me all the time, he'd say, Tim, remember, there are no good, bad, or indifferent drawings. They're your drawings. Whatever you want to do, if you just want to make number ones on a page and fill up the whole page with number one, that's fine. Do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. So I tell people, they say they can't draw a straight line. I say, sure you can. Go over there and get that ruler out of the drawer and draw a straight line. I'm not interested in the straight line. I want to see the squiggle, the circle, the oval, the dots. Just have fun and see where it goes. You never know what you're going to get. I never realized I would be capable of doing what I'm doing today. I never did stuff like this ever in my life. But I've got a whole different style and a whole new thing going.
I could do faces, but I'm really struggle with perspective in the body. And there's a great book John Buscema wrote with Marvel, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. That's a great way to self-teach yourself to draw. Anyway.
Well, that's a great way to do it if that's what you want to do. But I would suggest you just get the book, get a sketchbook, and start doodling.
Cool.
And just draw loose. Get a soft pencil, not a hard pencil, a soft pencil, and draw loose and sketchy, and just draw.
Just draw.
anything and everything. Draw them in abstract, draw them in flat, whatever.
It's almost like the Nike expression, which I won't say. I like that. Just draw. That's like a bumper sticker or something. Just draw.
Just draw.
That should be your next book. By the way, how many books have you published?
2.
Please, what's the other book?
Drawings from the Left or Parkinson's Pictures.
Right. Where can people find your books?
Well, through me, because they're not available in any stores, and I'm running out of them quick, so I don't have any of the first one anymore. And I've got maybe 100 of the second one.
You need to reprint it. The publisher needs to reprint your first book.
Well, I self-published it, so I don't know.
Gotcha.
Because I don't know where all the elements are. I think the elements are all lost.
Gotcha, brother. You're a great follow on social media. I don't know if you want people reaching out to you on Facebook or not, but you're always sharing your latest drawings. It's awesome. And your book, Shaken Not Broken, An Artist's Journey Through Hell, is fantastic. I better put that up before the camera again. And
well, I'll tell you that the webpage thing was a financial disaster, that's for sure.
Say what?
No, the web pages. The web pages I have on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff.
Right. Are you on Instagram too, by the way?
I'm on Instagram.
I need to follow you there. I haven't done that yet.
I haven't. I sold 20 prints to 20 friends of mine in 6 months, and no one else bought a single thing. And it cost me a fortune to put those web pages up, but they did a great job. I'm going to leave them up, but I'm going to start going into other areas. I mean, when the economy of the world is in the toilet, art is the first thing that goes in the toilet right after it. Nobody's buying any artwork.
A lot of starving artists out there.
So
it's always an honor and total joy to listen to you. And but before we wrap, I wanted to ask you something about these films that turned 40 this year in 2021, and see if you have any memories of either working on them or just memories in general. Let's start with Heavy Metal, released August 7th, 1981.
No, I didn't work on it. I saw it, I liked it, but I did not work on it.
Disney's The Fox and the Hound. I know the answer to this because I know what Disney projects you worked on. I'll just go over this list just for the people in the audience that want to know what's turning 40 this year in the animated film realm. American Pop by Ralph Bakshi, who you work with a lot.
I did not work on it. In fact, I don't think I've even seen it.
Oh, you never seen it yet? It was released February 13th, 81 by Columbia Pictures. All right, I'm going to play a clip later after we sign off because you've shared so much time with me, almost 3 hours now. It's incredible. And then the Looney Bugs Bunny movie was released in 1981.
I don't think I saw it.
And it's just a rehash of old cartoons, you know that. It's just the classics.
Yeah, they were doing that, clips and bridges between old cartoons.
Right. And here's one that's unusual: The Sea Prince and the Fire Child, otherwise known as The Legend of Sirius. Not Siri, but Sirius, like Sirius XM satellite radio.
I don't know that.
Yeah, it's Japanese. I'll play a little clip of that. And then they had another one, Swan Lake. That's another Japanese animated film from 1981. And that's the end of the list that I had.
I don't see a lot of stuff. The Japanese stuff I'm not crazy about. I respect their ability to draw. I respect their ability to do films. And I respect their talent. I just don't have much of an interest in it. Maybe I will someday when I start to look at that stuff, if I ever do. The Disney stuff, I mean, like Beauty and the Beast, I've never seen all the way through. Punchback, I've never seen. I'm so keyed up on the old ones, the classics, the first 5: Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Bambi, and Dumbo.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard for me to look at any of these later ones because they don't seem like. I respect the guys that worked on it. I respect their talent, but they seem to me to be just characters going through the motions. They're not characters that I believe are live, real people like the first 5 features are. There's some kind of sparkle that those things have that none of the other films have ever accomplished.
Walt Disney and his brother were revolutionaries for sure. They changed
that's
everything.
That's for sure.
Well, we're coming up on almost 3 hours. I was going about 10, 12 minutes before you called in. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I consider you a friend now. I may travel out there one day and meet the fellas. I know I can't be part of your group, the Cliffhangers, but maybe we could do a meet and greet. Who knows?
Or you come out here, you definitely come to a Cliffhangers meeting for sure. Woody will invite you to that.
Cool.
Yeah, I know that.
And the message today is never give up.
Never
give up.
What? Don't ever give up. And pick up a sketchbook and start sketching. Start drawing. Start doodling. Just do it for yourself. And I'm talking about everybody now, not just you. Everybody.
I know.
Think of what a wonderful world this would be if everybody had some kind of art they were doing.
It'd be a beautiful world, man. It really would. There'd be less hate.
That's true. That's true.
Well, my brother, I'm going to. Was there any final thoughts? Anything else that you want to talk about, or should we save it for the next time?
Nobody's got no last question from the audience right now.
I don't see any other questions coming in. I think I did such a great job with my questions that nobody wanted to interject except for Barry King when he asked you about the new adventures of Flash Gordon from Filmation, and you gave your honest opinion on that.
Of all things, I never would have thought I would have heard that. But that's funny. It's a great life. It's a great, great life. So go out and live it. Go out and live it. Do some artwork. Enjoy some conversations with a friend. Do something for somebody. It's more fulfilling than all the money in the world. All the money in the world. So, I'm here for you, buddy. Anytime you want to talk, you call me no matter what.
I will, even offline. Forget the show. I will take you up on that, James Tim Walker.
Yeah, we've talked about this. You know what you can do. So anytime, pal. Anytime.
Thank you. Well, you have a great rest of the week. Thanks for being a part of the Nostalgic Podblast number 68. And I look forward to our Zoom call after your groundbreaking procedure. And you are a survivor of Parkinson's disease, and I'm going to read about that after this interview concludes. I'm going to read the article "Hope for a Cure" that was written about you.
Okay, now is this interview going to be played again tomorrow or the next day, or what? Or no?
Yeah, it's going to be played on fistfulofradio.com next weekend from 2 to 5 p.m. Fistful of Radio, that's an Atlanta-based radio outlet. It'll be on 2 to 5 Saturday and Sunday, and that's our time, so it'll be 11 a.m. your time. And it's going to be forever on YouTube. I'm going to put this on YouTube tonight, and I'm going to share the hell out of it online on social media for what it's worth. And also we're going to be on Apple Podcasts. You can hear it on demand on Apple, podcast.co, SoundCloud, Spotify. All the major podcasts will have the audio version only, but if you want to see the video, you got to go to YouTube, the Nostalgic Podblast, and I'll send you a link if you want a link to it.
Yeah, send me a link, and what's the one that is going on right away? Did you say is it going on?
It's going on audio. It's going to stream on fistfulofradio.com. If you're listening in another state outside of Atlanta, next weekend, it'll be on fistfulofradio.com Saturday and Sunday. Your time, 11 a.m. is when it'll start.
Yeah, okay. So did you say it was going on something tonight, though? No.
Yeah, it's going to be on YouTube tonight, and I'll send you the link tonight.
Okay, great.
When we wrap up, I'm going to send you the YouTube link. I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel, and I'll send it to you. And you can distribute that yourself via email or however you want to, private message on Facebook. But I'll send it to you within, I'd say, an hour or so.
Great.
I will not fail you.
It's been great, buddy. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I want to thank you again for being a part of the show and talking about your experience. That was interesting about Robert Blake, your buddy, Sergio Aragonés, and your overcoming Parkinson's disease and not giving up on your talent and your God-given skill and your positive mental attitude. That's what we need these days, is some positive attitude.
Thanks, Chance. I love you, buddy.
I love you too, man. God bless you. Bye. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
James Tim Walker, everybody. Let's play out. I was going to play this for him when he came on. Welcome back, and I forgot.
Welcome back. Your dreams will
This will be probably muted. Let me do this myself. If you are listening on Facebook, it'll probably get muted, but on YouTube, it won't be muted. I pre-screened these clips for approval. So always listen to the Nostalgic Pod Blast or watch it on YouTube because you'll hear everything. If ever the music if ever the sound goes out, it's because I'm playing a clip that Facebook bots muted.
Yeah, we tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. 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 We always could spot a friend. Welcome back. And I smile when I think how you must have been. And I know what a scene you were learning in. Was there something that made you come back again? And what could ever lead you? What could ever lead you? Back here where we need you. Back here where we need you. Yeah, we tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. And I know what a scene you were learning in. Was there something that made you come back again? And what could ever lead you? What could ever lead you? Back here where we need you. Back here where we need you. Yeah, we tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
James Tim Walker, welcome.
Tease him a lot. Welcome back. Welcome back.
He's the best.
On the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, we tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
James Tim Walker.
Welcome back. Welcome.
And we'll catch you after the procedure, the groundbreaking procedure you're going to undergo. Which you told me has been around for a while, but to draw and be conscious while that's going on, that's incredible. I need to get a cup of coffee, so let's play a clip, another clip. Let's see. Yeah, the Beretta theme by Sammy Davis Jr. Again, if you're watching this on Facebook and it gets muted, head to my YouTube channel, The Nostalgic with a C Pod Blast. Here's the theme to Beretta. Reason I'm playing this, if you listened earlier, maybe you missed it. James Tim Walker is not only a talented artist, but he was involved in the Robert Blake trial. He was subpoenaed to testify, which I found out after my first interview with him weeks ago. Fascinating stuff. And look up James Tim Walker on Google. On YouTube, you'll see him on CBS. I mean, there's a lot of his book signing event. You'll see a lot of interesting, inspirational stuff. And look up Brotherhood of the Popcorn, too. That's a really interesting group of guys there. So here is, as I get some coffee, the Beretta theme by Sammy Davis Jr. While I get coffee.
Don't go to bed with no price on your head. No, no. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Keep your eye on the sparrow. When the going gets narrow.
Don't give up.
Don't do me dirt, or you're gonna get hurt. Don't do it. And don't run away till you hear what I say. No.
Don't do it.
Keep your eye on the sparrow. When the going gets narrow. Don't do it. Don't do it. Ain't gonna fight with no thief in the night.
Hell yeah. Don't give up. That's the message of today. That's a great theme, isn't it? And again, if it was muted, I'm repeating myself. It'll be on YouTube in the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel. Check it out. Got some other clips I want to play as we wrap up today's Podblast. Thanks for being with us. I know the Olympics are going on if you're watching live. A lot of more interesting, now he was interesting. I'm talking about me now. More interesting things than me running my mouth you could be doing. But man, what a great interview. What a great talker. And it sounded like it was pretty clear. At first, it sounded like he was rocking, and because of his medical condition, he needs to do whatever he can to be comfortable. So, that's cool. But I thought it was a bird at first. It sounded like a bird in the background. James Tim Walker, if you're watching, you'll see what I mean if you play it back in the beginning and then you settle down, but it sounded a little like a bird. And I say that kiddingly, I mean facetiously. It's not a problem. I'm not complaining. I'm really not. It was just interesting to me. Now here, excuse me, here is one of the first trailers. I'm going to play two trailers for Heavy Metal, the movie released August 7th, 1981, 40 years ago. Here's a little bit, of Heavy Metal. And it was a Canadian-American adult animated science fiction anthology film, as most people know. And it was based on the magazine Heavy Metal. So I want to play for you in the audience some audio. Here's the teaser trailer for Heavy Metal. Come on now.
Pictures presents Heavy Metal. A trip beyond the future to a universe you've never seen before. A universe of mystery. A universe of passionate fantasies. A universe of terrifying evil. A universe of magic. Heavy Metal. Heavy Metal, a step beyond science fiction.
How long have we gone? Oh, fuck! Frack! Oh, shucks. Excuse my language. I just got to notice. I knew I'd get in trouble with the music on Facebook. Oh, well, it's not going to affect anything. I'm not going to panic. But here's a little bit more of the longer version. Here's a little bit of the long version for Heavy Metal, the trailer for Heavy Metal. That just threw me.
Columbia Pictures takes you beyond the future to a universe you've never seen before.
I think you're going a little high, man.
It's okay, man. If there's one thing I know, it's how to drive when I'm stoned. It's like your perspective's fucked, so you just gotta let your hands work the controls as if you're straight.
Some adult language in this, as you can tell.
Oh, wow. Good landing, man.
A universe of mystery.
Is it gone?
Okay,
Guy getting held up.
Hand over your
Taxi cab
cash.
driver, we know that scene. He gets vaporized.
A universe of sexual fantasies.
So,
My whips.
because I don't want to get in trouble, I'm going to stop that trailer for now. Now, since the message today is never give up, there was a movie, I referenced it earlier, called Galaxy Quest. And here's a little bit of Galaxy Quest. The music by Gary Newman, who had done the song, Short People Got No Reason to Live. And the anthem, I Love L.A., it's a L.A. anthem. James Tim Walker knows that very well. But let's listen to a little bit of the Galaxy Quest theme. The message is, never give up. Don't give up. Never surrender. That's enough. We've gone over 3 hours. So I'm going to cut this short like me. Cut it short. Fox and the Hound, released 40 years ago. Yeah, all right. Well, I want to get this to James Tim Walker, so I guess I will say goodbye for now. Appreciate you being here with us for a very inspirational interview by a great man, a humble man, someone I'm honored to call a friend, and I just can't believe he was on the Nostalgic Podblast. And I want him to go on BK's show, Barry King and Alan Sanders' show, BK on the Air. I'm sure James Tim Walker would love to go on there briefly, but we don't have the kind of time there like we have now. Obviously, it'd probably be like a segment. That's Barry and Alan's call, but hopefully they'll be receptive to that. We'll see. So until next week, this is Chance Bartels signing off. Thanks for listening or watching, or both, the Nostalgic Podblast. God bless you. Embrace the higher power, brothers and sisters. And I'm going to doodle and draw tonight. I'm going to take James Tim Walker's advice and get back at it. Have a great, great week. Every single one of you. I appreciate y'all. Good night.